Chapter 372. Instantly, hundreds of wind blades flew out as if they were free, forming a dazzling golden wind blade dragon that swept toward Ingo like a hurricane. Tyrannical blood spear. A blood-red spear condensed in Ingo's hand and stabbed at the wind blade dragon. The spear was sharp and filled with blood chi. It pierced through the void and caused intense friction with the air, igniting flames that soared into the sky. Wherever the tip of the spear passed, buildings would collapse and rocks would fly everywhere. Deep gullies would appear on the ground as if it was a ruin after an earthquake. Zombie King Ingo is too terrifying. After all, he has a lifespan of hundreds of years and absorbed many powerful bloodlines. Now, he has absorbed the blood essence of dozens of masters from Lord Tan's branch. The spectators in the distance were all dumbfounded. They were scared out of their wits, and their hearts were palpitating. Boom! With a loud bang, the dragon-like wind blade collided with the blood-red spear. It was like a huge explosion, and waves of monstrous air blasted out in all directions. As the airwaves rolled, the palaces collapsed one after another. The towering trees that could be hugged by two people were snapped in half. The millstone-like boulders were thrown away as if they were thrown by a catapult, flying hundreds of meters away before crashing to the ground. Experts like Anpei Qingkong and Miyamoto Takeo were fine. With the protection of the yin-yang technique, they were fine. But the experts of the Yamaguchi-gumi were miserable. Some of them vomited blood and fell to the ground, while others were cut into pieces by the wind blades and debris. Yuan Ning, watch out! Seeing a piece of stone flying toward them, Chen Jiafu quickly pushed Yuan Ning aside and protected her with his body. Bang! The place where Yuan Ning was originally at was smashed into a mess by a huge rock, and the building was shattered. Thank you. For the first time, Yuan Ning felt the warmth from Chen Jiafu and smiled gratefully. Chen Jiafu just smiled honestly. This zombie king is really terrifying. I wonder if Master Kong can create a miracle this time. Li Jianxi was frightened, and white sweat appeared on his face. Father, Master Kong is like a divine dragon in the sky. He can do it. Li Jinju's clenched fists tightened once more. Her expression was resolute as she looked expectantly at Jiang Tian's figure. The fate of Tanjuan's branch and the fate of the Xingyue Li family were all tied to Jiang Tian. If Jiang Tian failed, it would be useless even if Lineage of Star and Moon got rid of Li Zirong. Li Zirong could find a new representative to seize control of Lineage of Star and Moon's Li family. The only way was to get rid of Ingo and the other Japanese experts. At this time, the battle between Jiang Tian and the zombie king Ingo had already entered a white-hot state. Jiang Tian's Dao arts, magic treasures, and celestial martial arts were all unleashed. Wind blades, chi weapons, fireballs, and thunderclaps were all unleashed. Xiao Hei's flying sword flew around the mountain, piercing through the void. It was like a fortress, with tens of thousands of cannons firing at the same time. Ingo also used spears, giant fists, rocks, chains, and blades formed by blood chi to attack Jiang Tian. Ingo was a zombie king with a lifespan of several hundred years. He fed on flesh and blood and was incomparably powerful. In history, he was on par with blood-sucking zombie king Jiangchen, zombie king Han Mei, and devil star zombie king Ho Qing. In the past few hundred years, he had killed many overlords, including many martial arts masters like the Transcendent Grandmasters. He had even escaped from an immortal state warrior, so his Dharma power and attack power were not weak. However, he paled in comparison to Jiang Tian, who had been cultivating for 10,000 years. Xiao Hei's flying sword was the Dharma treasure of the ancient heavenly court and was much more powerful than ordinary Dharma artifacts. Every time it cut him down, it would take away some of his blood chi and weaken his blood chi. Bang, bang, bang. There were continuous explosions and rocks flew everywhere. The earth shook and the mountains shook. The two of them fought from the back of the mountain to the front hall like two hurricanes. All the buildings in Tanjuan's Taoist palace collapsed. Old trees with hundreds of years of history were reduced to ashes. Artificial mountains and gardens were reduced to ruins and black soil. As Jiang Tian used his Dharma spells and martial arts techniques, Jiang Tian suppressed Ingo's blood qi and suppressed him. In a hurry, he grabbed a few disciples of Tanjuan's branch and tore them apart. He didn't have enough people, so he grabbed a few members of the Yamaguchi-gumi and tourists and ate them alive. Finally, his blood qi recovered a little. Jiang Taichu, if you have the guts, don't use your strange sword or magic. Fight me with your physical body. He chewed hard with his big mouth, causing streams of blood and minced meat to spurt out from the corners of his mouth. He roared angrily, his voice sounding like muffled thunder that traveled miles away. I can absorb the blood essence of all the blood slaves of Lord Tan's branch at any time. You can't kill me. Really? Do you think you can withstand my kick? Jiang Tian put away Xiao Hei's flying sword and many Dharma spells and sneered. Suddenly, he shot into the sky like a whistling arrow and disappeared in the blink of an eye. Did he run away? Someone looked up at the sky and tried to find Jiang Tian. He's really fast. Huaxia people are good at running away. Miyamoto Takeo wiped the cold sweat off his forehead and cursed angrily. He still had some lingering fear. He must be scared of Ingo. Anpei Qingkong smiled, but the next moment, his face turned serious again. He said in a low voice, but we can't underestimate this guy. He's a dual cultivator of Dharma spells and martial arts and has the divine state. He might come back again. We need to be more vigilant and bring 1 or 2 real Shikigami here. Kang Teichu, he ran away. Damn the martial artists of Huaxia. Ingo waved his fist and roared angrily. Is Grandmaster Jiang defeated? Li Jianxi's face was deathly pale. He wondered if he should quickly slip away. Yuan Ning and Chen Jiafu were stunned at first. Then they said in a hurry, let's go. Jiang Tian might be injured. Let's see if we can get in touch with him and help him. But at this moment, the area within a radius of 100 meters, a few hundred meters, a few miles, the sound of falling snow disappeared. The howling of the wind and the rustling of the pines in the forest also disappeared. Then, the screams of the injured, the cries of the dead tourists, the discussions and curses of the crowd, and even Ingo's angry roars all disappeared. The noisy Tanjun Taoist palace became extremely quiet. In fact, quiet was a relative term. In fact, the reason why all these noises disappeared was that everyone could only hear one sound. It was the low rumble of a heavy object breaking through the air at high speed. It sounded more like a huge rock that was thrown down from the clouds by a god and was accelerating. It also sounded like a fighter jet breaking through the sound barrier and making a strange sound due to the friction with the air. A monstrous pressure fell from the sky. Everyone couldn't stand up. They even had to kneel on the ground. With great difficulty, they looked up at the sky. They originally thought that they had repelled Jiang Tian and were in a good mood. Their eyes were already filled with joy, but now they were suddenly occupied by deep fear and shock. That can't be. Master Kong, right? As for Li Jianxi and Li Jinju, they were originally in despair and grief, but now they looked up at the sky with surprise and shock. For a moment, everyone raised their heads and looked at the direction of the terrifying rumbling sound in the sky. Dark clouds covered the sun, and heavy snow fell from the sky. In the shadows under the clouds, a small black dot fell from the sky like a falling meteor. The black dot grew bigger and bigger, becoming the size of a fist and then the size of a basketball. Gradually, one could see that it was a human figure. The figure cut through the sky. His body was covered in blood-like flames. He fell from hundreds of meters in the air as if he had jumped down from the clouds. The terrifying speed broke through the air around his body, burning the snowflakes and spreading a semicircular mist. It was unknown whether it was because of the intense friction between his legs, but blood spurted out of his legs. This figure was like a meteor crashing to the ground. It was like an Dongfeng Earth penetrator missile that could penetrate the Earth dozens of meters. And below him was where Ingo stood. You can't kill me. Ingo's blue face suddenly became ferocious. He opened his bloody mouth and roared at the sky. He held his hands up as if he was raising fire to burn the sky. He didn't run. Miyamoto Takeo was shocked. He felt the pressure of the violent aura and spat out blood. His body was on the verge of collapse. This wasn't the true chi of a martial artist, nor was it the chi of heaven and earth. It was just pure air. But under the powerful force of this rapid kick, even the air became a lethal weapon. Waves of air blasted onto the ground, causing snow to flutter, ice to shatter, dust to fly, and basketball-sized rocks to scatter all over the ground. 9 Dragons Protection Art. With an old shout, Anpei Chinkong's hands trembled violently. His yin-yang master spiritual power gushed out and gathered the chi of heaven and earth around him. Then he looked up. His frightened eyes passed through the fluttering snowflakes and saw a foot. The foot was wearing a pair of very ordinary hiking shoes. The soles of the shoes were new and clean. There was no dust, only a little snow. After all, there was snow on the road today. The moment he saw this foot, a thought uncontrollably appeared in Anpei Chinkong's mind. Death had come. When everyone saw Jiang Tian's figure, Ingo's arrogant and unyielding body was already kneeling on the ground. Boom! His knees and feet, which supported his body, smashed the hard bluestone into pieces. He gritted his teeth and coughed. Hot blood spurted out of his nose. He struggled to raise his head. His eyes were gradually filled with fear. He grabbed a 3-meter-long rockery and raised it above his head like a shield. He wanted to block this terrible blow. The foot from the sky was like 1,000 mountains. It stepped on Ingo's raised boulder like a hot knife through butter. The hiking shoes were unable to withstand this terrible strength and began to crack inch by inch. The huge boulder with a radius of 3 meters exploded in an instant, turning into countless pieces of rubble that shot out in all directions. Ingo didn't even have the time to let out a groan before his thick, pillar-like arms were turned into muscled tendons under that unstoppable and incomparably terrifying power. The white bones that had just been exposed were instantly pulverized. Blood spurted out of his nose, eyes, ears, and mouth like arrows. The foot broke through the boulder and continued to descend through the flying blood and flesh. Finally, it easily stepped on Ingo's head. Ingo's head, which was still staring in shock, was directly stomped into his neck by this foot. Then, that foot continued downwards, stepping on his body. Ingo's body suddenly sank and flattened. Then, it directly exploded, turning into countless pieces of flesh, blood, and shattered bones that shot out in all directions. The foot in the hiking shoes continued to descend. Pressing forward with indomitable will. Stepping on the remains of Ingo's flesh. Stepping on the hard bluestone pavement. Boom! There was a loud noise. Dust, snow, and flesh powder sprayed everywhere. Gravel and yellow soil flew everywhere. A 10-meter-wide crater was formed in this area. Ingo had completely disappeared from where he stood. Chapter 373. The sharp pebbles shot dozens of Japanese overlords to the ground like cannonballs. It was as if a tornado had passed through. Billowing waves of air swept in all directions. Trees were snapped, walls collapsed, and houses collapsed. It was a complete mess. The foot that pierced through the clouds finally stepped on the land that had been occupied by the Japanese for 18 years. Jiang Tian stood in the middle of the ruins in a white outfit. He looked expressionlessly at the Japanese cultivators who were standing there like statues, looking like an immortal. Master, is indeed a godlike man. Li Jinju looked at Jiang Tian's back and finally smiled through her tears. Master Kong won. After Li Jianxi recovered from his shock, he did not have the image of a tycoon at all. Instead, he cheered like a child. Fuck! That foot came from the sky and flew so high, Chen Jiafu was so shocked that he was dumbstruck. His heart almost jumped out of his throat, and he felt dizzy. He was at a loss for words. He couldn't describe the shock in his heart. He's really like a god. Yuan Ning's gaze completely changed, shooting out rays of worship. Meanwhile, in the Japanese martial arts community. How is that possible? Miyamoto Takeo's eyes almost popped out of their sockets. Ingo, the zombie king of the ancient times, had absorbed the blood chi of Lord Tanjun. His power was beyond the imagination of ordinary people. He could collapse a mountain with one punch and shatter the earth with one stomp. His body was filled with blood chi and was indestructible. However, he was crushed by Jiang Tian. The other Japanese overlords were also shocked. They couldn't believe their eyes. Ingo was the new god cultivated by the Enpei family and was their biggest hope. Over the years, with his powerful strength, Enpei and the others were invincible. They controlled Tanjuan's faction and were like the overlord of South Korea. But then, Ingo was crushed by Jiang Tian. They were at a loss as if they had lost their backbone. Puff! Anpei Chinkong's spiritual power was connected to Ingo's, and the pain and fear of Ingo's death were transmitted to his mind. He spat out a mouthful of blood from the backlash, clutching his chest as he retreated, almost falling to the ground. That kick just now broke through the sound barrier. Then, Anpei Chinkong looked at Jiang Tian in horror. It was as if he had seen a demon, and his face was filled with fear and shock. Breaking the hypersonic barrier with one's physical body was one of the symbols of the peak stage of the god realm. Previously, he had thought that Jiang Tian was half a step away from the divine state, because a divine state warrior under the age of 30 had not appeared in history for hundreds of years. It was too inconceivable. He couldn't accept it at all. Now, he understood that the rumors about Jiang Tian were true. In other words, many rumors had seriously underestimated Jiang Tian's strength. Not only was Jiang Tian at the deity realm, he might even be the strongest among the deity realm experts. Let's go and rescue Lord Tan's people, Li Jinju was overjoyed. Just as she was about to rush into the back of the palace with her father, something unexpected happened. On the broken limbs that Jiang Tian had stomped into meat paste, clouds of red blood mist suddenly rolled like lava. Countless pieces of flesh, broken bones, and internal organs that were scattered in the ruins trembled and suddenly spun like a tornado, gradually condensing into the shape of a new winning hook. First, it was the bones, blood vessels, organs, and muscles, then the head and torso, and finally the scale-like skin. In just a few seconds, a new Ingo had formed. A new winning hook was formed, but its body was one size smaller. It was only 3 meters tall. What? How is this possible? Li Jinju screamed as her face turned pale. Even Ingo couldn't be killed. It was too scary. SSS. Li Jianxi also suddenly sucked in a breath of cold air, and white sweat appeared on his forehead. How terrifying was an unkillable existence. How could they deal with it? Should they ask the South Korean military to deploy heavy weapons? Ingo has come back to life. It's too powerful. Let's see how Huaxia deals with it. On the other hand, many of the East Asian powerhouses cheered in ecstasy. Ampere Clear Kong was also overjoyed. He shouted excitedly, he has just broken the sound barrier once and has exhausted all his strength. He won't be able to do it again. This time, he will be beaten to death by Lord Ingo. Kong Tae-chu, you are indeed powerful. Ingo's long tongue moved and his fangs rubbed against each other as he sneered. But what's the use of being powerful? As long as I am in Lord Tan's palace, I can absorb the flesh and blood of countless blood slaves. You can't kill me. Ingo was the king of zombies, an ancestor-level zombie. He used an evil secret technique to absorb human flesh and blood to form a powerful body. Even if Jiang Tian shattered it, he could reform it. His red demonic eyes stared at Jiang Tian. He licked his lips and said, "You have broken the sound barrier with a single kick from the sky. Your physique is so strong. It shows how strong your blood chi is. If I devour you, I can even suppress those Japanese overlords." Devour me? Jiang Tian laughed and looked at Ingo as if he was an idiot. What a boast. Do you know that no one in the world can fight me with powerful blood chi? Jiang Tian took a step forward and sneered. Today, I will suck your flesh and blood dry and turn you into a mummy, a specimen. How was Qiao Bin's blood qi weaker than Ingo's? He had devoured the blood qi of countless overlords with the help of the Taotai fish. But in the end, he was killed by Qin Fan in one move. Is that so? Arrogant Huaxia brat, try me then. Ingo roared furiously. Suddenly, he took a big step forward and dashed madly towards Jiang Tian. Instantly, the earth quaked and the mountains swayed. The distance of dozens of meters was covered in the blink of an eye. He opened his mouth, and his dagger-like fangs shone with a sharp light as he bit toward Jiang Tian. Moreover, many vine-like flesh tubes extended from his spine, wriggling like tentacles, and wrapped around Jiang Tian. Humph. Go to hell. Jiang Tian snorted disdainfully. He used Qin Fan's blood qi and reached out to grab Ingo. This was the second time he had used Qin Fan's blood qi since his rebirth, and he was more proficient than before. Everyone was shocked to see a fountain of blood spurting out from Ingo's body and flowing toward Jiang Tian's palm. The streams of blood were scarlet and translucent, as if they had a mind of their own. They rushed into Jiang Tian's hand. Ha! What secret technique is Lord Ingo using this time? It's too powerful. At first, many of the Japanese powerhouses did not understand. They thought that Ingo was devouring Jiang Tian's blood essence. But soon, they realized that something was wrong. What kind of evil technique is this? Ingo screamed in fear as if he had seen an evil ghost. He turned around and ran away. It's too scary. He suddenly felt a terrifying sense of emptiness. Blood flowed out uncontrollably as if his body would dry up in the next moment. However, he could not hold on any longer after running 2 steps. His blood essence flowed out even faster. It was 7 to 8 meters thick and was rushing toward Jiang Tian like a river of blood. Kang Te Chu, what kind of evil technique is this? Why is my blood flowing out? Let go of me. Ingo struggled with all his might, roaring angrily. His terrifying roars and screams spread for several miles. A mere zombie that devours rotten flesh. Your technique is extremely crude, and you claim to be immortal. What a joke. But Jiang Tian would not stop. He sneered and unleashed the Jinjin Shogo to the extreme. The blood ball between his fingers kept shrinking and turning from liquid to solid. It also went from the size of a basketball to the size of an egg. Every time the blood ball increased in size, it would shrink again. The solid red ball also condensed and became like a ruby, sparkling and translucent, sparkling and dazzling. Everyone, let's save Lord Ingo together. Ampere Chinkong's expression changed drastically as he shouted. You want to win with numbers? What kind of waves could a bunch of ants cause? You're courting death. Jiang Tian opened his left hand and continued to absorb Ingo's blood essence. With a light shake of his right hand, Xiao Hei's flying sword tore through the air with a strange howl. Today, he was going to start a massacre. More than a dozen Nitin first-rate Japanese kendo experts rushed forward and surrounded Jiang Tian in a semicircle. They jumped high into the air and slashed down with the katanas in their hands. This was the joint attack of the Nitin Ichiryu, also known as the combined slash. The dozen kendo masters jumped, fell, and slashed at the same time. The blade chi converged into a massive blade chi that spanned 10 meters across the sky. It was as powerful as an attack from a half-step immortal state warrior. However, before their swords could reach their target. Sizzle. 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 Blood arrows shot out one after another. Xiao Hei's flying sword turned into a black light and pierced through the chests of the sword masters one after another. The blood arrows were almost connected from head to tail, and their trajectories formed a smooth arc thump. Thump. 18 kendo masters fell to the ground at the same time. None of them managed to escape. Art of Yin Yang, Heart Curse Array. While the 18 Kendo masters attacked, the Grand Onmyoji of the Ampere family also made their move. They shifted their positions and stepped onto the array formation. Simultaneously, they formed hand seals and shot out beams of white light from their eyes as they poured their spiritual energy into Anpei Chinkong. On the other hand, Anpei's eyes flickered with a bright light. He formed a profound seal with his hands and spat out an obscure haiku. He pointed at Jiang Tian in the air and shouted explosively. Break! Mantra, annihilation. Although Onmyoji had a different name, they were similar to Dharma spells and witchcraft. They could control the chi of heaven and earth and cast spells in the air. Only Ingo, a new god, was more powerful than the others. Ampere Clear Sky decided to gather the mental power of the Onmyojis and use the word of truth to kill Jiang Tian. As soon as he pointed at Jiang Tian's organs, muscles, and bones trembled violently as his body swelled. That feeling was as if a towering tree was about to grow out of his body and forcefully burst it apart. You want to destroy my divine body with a mere spell? Dream on. Jiang Tian let out a long howl as he circulated the seventh gold divine technique, causing his skin, muscles, and bones to contract, and it was like a spring that had been tightened and emitted a wave of cracking sounds. Chapter 374. Bang! Jiang Tian forcefully squeezed out a formless spell's mental power, causing it to explode in all directions. How can his body be so strong? It seems to be made of steel. Is he an unkillable cockroach? Meanwhile, Ampere Chinkong and the other powerful magicians all took a step back, staring at Jiang Tian in shock and fear. I can't accept this. How can I die? At this moment, Ingo suddenly let out an extremely shrill howl. In the end, his body stiffened, and he stopped struggling and became motionless. His body had shrunk to the size of a 5 or 6-year-old child. He was all skin and bones. His eye sockets were sunken. On the bluestone ground, there were messy scratches with bloodstains. He had actually used both of his hands to forcefully grab the ground. It could be seen how much pain he had suffered before he died. The blood ball in Jiang Tian's hand had shrunk to the size of a fist. It had absorbed all of Ingo's blood qi. What, is Lord Ingo really dead? What should we do? Everyone was terrified, their eyes filled with fear. The Japanese overlords didn't dare to attack anymore. They backed away step by step. Kang Taechu was too terrifying. He could even kill Ingo. He was like a demon from hell. Master Kang, please spare my life. Miyamoto Takeo was overwhelmed by despair and fear. He knelt on the ground and trembled. Lord Ingo. Although the new god fed on flesh and blood and didn't rely on soul energy, he was powerful enough to suppress some of the older Shikigami. He was much more powerful than the average kendo grand teachers and immortal ninjas. And yet, he had been sucked dry by Jiang Tian. Master Kang, please spare our lives. We are willing to follow Master Kang. We will fight wherever you point. Grand Master Jiang, we submit. Please spare our lives. Fear seemed to be contagious. The other Japanese overlords all knelt on the ground, fearing that Jiang Tian would kill them. No matter if they were kendo masters, first-class ninjas, or gang members, at this moment, all of them were kneeling on the ground in submission, worshipping Jiang Tian as if they were worshipping a god. Some were even bawling loudly with snot bubbles coming out of their noses. That kind of ugliness was simply indescribable. In the end, even Anpei Chinkong knelt down. His aged face was covered in humiliation, sorrow, and despair, and he kept silent as if he was at the mercy of others. Yin-Yang masters had frail physical bodies. They relied entirely on controlling spirits and controlling ghosts to kill their enemies. Ingo was already dead, so they could only use their spells. He had lost his backing and was no match for Jiang Tian's saber. Don't you East Asians claim to uphold the samurai spirit of honor, loyalty, courage, righteousness, propriety, sincerity, restraint, and benevolence, and would rather die than submit? Jiang Tian put his hands behind his back and asked with interest. That was in the past. We have to keep up with the times. We respect the strong, and we will submit to whoever is strong. Miyamoto Takeo was like a loyal dog that had just met its master. He squeezed out a flattering smile and moved his knees toward Jiang Tian. Master Kong, we are willing to submit to you and be your lackeys. I am a kendo master, which is equivalent to a grandmaster in Huaxia. They are quite powerful too. At this moment, he still had some confidence in himself. After all, they were all powerful fighters, and Jiang Tian would need their help if he wanted to take over South Korea. You are just a bunch of East Asians. How dare you be my lackeys? To their surprise, Jiang Tian smirked and swung his right hand. The little black flying dagger shot out again. Sizzle. 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 Blood splattered everywhere, and many East Asians were beheaded before they could even scream. The little black flying dagger was also faster than the speed of sound, and these people were killed before they could react. Even Miyamoto Takeo did not manage to escape. His head was sliced open by the black flying dagger. Master Kong. If you kill me, you will regret it. Only Ampere Clear Sky managed to let out a cry of surprise. Huh? Why? Jiang Tian's divine will moved. The little black flying dagger stopped 3 inches away from Ampere Clear Sky's chest. Master Kong, please spare my life. Ampere Clear Sky's face was pale, and his lips were trembling. I thought you had some backbone, but you are just the same. You also know how to beg for your life. Jiang Tian clasped his hands behind his back and sneered. Tell me, why should I spare your life? Why would I regret it if I don't? Master Kong, the Ampere family is one of the top yin-yang master families in East Asia, and we rule over Kyushu. Ampere Clear Sky trembled. Also, the Ampere family worships Nomiya Shrine, one of the 4 major shrines in East Asia. A real god is sleeping there, and he is 10 times more powerful than Ingo, so what? I said before, I want to exterminate them all, not leaving a single one alive. Jiang Tian said with a cold smile. Ampere Clear Sky wanted to scare Jiang Tian, but seeing that his plan had failed, he quickly came up with another plan. Grandmaster Jiang, if you insist on destroying these shrines, I can act as your guide. What the hell, a guide? Jiang Tian said with a face full of shock. Your shamelessness has refreshed my understanding of the lower limits. Master Kong, I advise you not to do anything to these shrines. Ampere Kong tried his best to persuade him. Those shrines are the symbol of the Japanese people's spirit and faith. Many military and political officials have to pay their respects to them. If you destroy those shrines, you will become the enemy of the entire Japan. At that time, I'm afraid that the self-defense forces will take action. Even if you are an immortal state warrior, I am afraid. Hey, are you threatening me? Jiang Tian glared at him, as if to say, Kid, I finally got you. My lord, I wouldn't dare. I am just giving you a friendly reminder. Ampere Clear Sky was so shocked that he almost jumped out of his seat and shouted. He was so depressed that he wanted to vomit blood. This Grandmaster Jiang was too temperamental. If he wanted to condemn someone, he could easily find a pretext. I am going to kill you anyway. Jiang Tian sent out his divine will. Xiao Hei's flying blade pierced through his chest. Demon. You are a bloodthirsty demon. I will send you to the 18th level of hell. And Pei Qing Kong fell to the ground on his back, blood spurting out of his chest. He screamed angrily, but his breathing was weak. You East Asian bastards are the real murderous beasts. You have committed countless crimes in Huaxia. If you like to kill, you should be prepared to be killed. Jiang Tian sneered and walked toward Ampere Clear Sky. Lin Fan was feeling great. Killing the Japanese was too satisfying. Although he had a personal grudge against the Huaxia society in Singapore, he did not feel so good about it. After all, many of them were descendants of Huaxia. However, the East Asian bastards were different. He didn't feel the slightest bit of guilt. Especially the generation of Jiang Tian's great-grandfather. It was unknown how many people had died in the Jinling massacre. If you kill me, you will regret it. Seeing Jiang Tian walk toward him, Emperor Clear Sky grinned and said viciously, "There are 4 top shrines in East Asia and each of them has a different divine power. Hee, even if you are an immortal state warrior, you won't be able to defend yourself against me without my guidance. You will die without my help. Hee. Idiot, do you think you can fool me?" Jiang Tian reached out and grabbed Emperor Clear Sky's head. His 5 fingers pierced deep into Emperor Clear Sky's skull like steel hooks. At the same time, Jiang Tian's divine will drilled into Emperor Clear Sky's mind. The soul-searching technique was a cultivation technique that allowed one's divine sense to be cultivated to a high level. It defied the heavens and went against the laws of nature. Even though Jiang Tian had reached the 5th level of qi refinement and could easily erase someone's memory, he couldn't use the art of soul-searching, especially when yin-yang masters were soul cultivators. However, Jiang Tian had beaten him half to death. His mind was filled with negative emotions such as pain, hatred, and despair. Therefore, the art of soul-searching was a piece of cake. Suddenly, images of the East Asian cultivation world appeared in Jiang Tian's mind. Jiang Tian took all of Emperor Clear Sky's memories. Meanwhile, Emperor Clear Sky's body twitched violently. Blood spurted out from his eyes, nose, mouth, and mouth. In the end, his eyes dimmed and he passed away. At this time, Li Jinju had already walked quickly behind Jiang Tian and stood respectfully, looking at Jiang Tian's back with eyes full of admiration. He had killed Ingo and many overlords on his own and saved Lord Tanjuan's family. If the news spread to East Asia, it would cause a huge uproar. When Li Jinju, Li Jianxi, and the others arrived at Lord Tanjuan's Taoist palace, they were all stunned. Hundreds of Lord Tanjuan's disciples were lying on the ground, motionless. Each of them was as thin as a mummy. Their robes were rotten and dirty, and there was a large wound on their necks and spines. Pus and blood were constantly flowing out, and the stench was overwhelming. "Grandpa! What's wrong with you?" Li Jinju hugged an old man and began to cry loudly. This old man was the sect master of Lord Tanjuan's Taoist palace, the heir of the family and the one who had adopted Li Jinju. He used to be as strong as a transcendent grandmaster, but then, his yellow hair had fallen off and blue veins were popping out on his scalp. He looked haggard and skinny, as if a gust of wind could blow him away. "Jinju, we've been used by someone. I thought Pei Qing Kong would help us. Who would have thought that he only treated us as blood slaves, as resources to improve his cultivation?" Old Palace Master Tan Jun was barely breathing. 2 streams of tears flowed out of his sunken eyes as he choked with sobs. "Ingo is a flesh-eating zombie, not an entity. Your senior uncles and I have been sucked dry by him for half a year and lost all our power. I'm afraid we won't make it." Seeing this, Jiang Tian remained calm, but he heaved a sigh in his mind. He had seen too many similar things in the cultivation world. Many cultivators and sects thought they had made a fortune when others gave them cultivation arts, cultivation resources and other benefits. But there was no such thing as a free lunch in this world. In the end, they were all used as cauldrons and even absorbed by a sect. It was indeed important to be good at using other things in cultivation. However, one couldn't rely on others and lose their independence. Otherwise, they would be doomed eternally. "Grandpa, you must be able to save us," Li Jinju pointed at Jiang Tian with tears in her eyes. "This is Grandmaster Jiang, the #1 Grandmaster in Huaxia. He has already killed Ingo and those Japanese villains. He has unfathomable abilities and will definitely be able to save you." Chapter 375. Master Kong. Is that the Kong Taechu who killed Wang Chongyan and Xiao Bin, the founder of the Winter Soldier Organization on Moling Lake? I've heard a lot about you. Old Palace Master Tan Jun's originally turbid and lifeless eyes suddenly blossomed with rays of light, as if he was on the verge of death. He stared at Jiang Tian with a face full of ecstasy and shock. Seeing Li Jinju nod, he hurriedly threw himself in front of Jiang Tian's feet and kowtowed, tears of gratitude flowing down his face. "Thank you, Master Kong, for killing the evil spirit of East Asia and avenging our Tan Jun lineage," he said passionately. "Tan Jun lineage and the people of South Han will never forget your great kindness for generations to come." "Old sir, it's nothing. You're welcome." Jiang Tian quickly helped him up and sat him down on an armchair. He fed him a qi-nourishing elixir and infused a stream of true essence to nourish him. He knew that Palace Master Tan Jun was already at the end of his life, and he was only holding on with resentment. At this time, the powerful enemy had been killed, and without the support of the resentment, he would probably die in a second. Then, Jiang Tian gave Li Jinju a bottle of elixir and asked her to share it with everyone. Everyone took the medicine and forced themselves to sit on the ground. They looked at Jiang Tian with eyes full of respect and gratitude. Li Jianxi called many subordinates of the Xingyue Li family to collect the corpses and tidy up the damaged courtyard. "Master Kong, where did this elixir come from?" After taking the elixir, Palace Master Tan Jun suddenly felt a lot more energetic and couldn't help but ask curiously. "Oh, I made it myself." Master Kong also knows alchemy and medicine. Palace Master Tan Jun was shocked again and couldn't believe it. Tan Jun's lineage included both Confucianism and Taoism, especially in the study of alchemy. This was not surprising. On Snow Peak Mountain, there were hundreds of years old ginseng, deer antler, fangfeng, schisandra, north cicada grass, and other precious herbs everywhere. They played to their strengths and avoided their weaknesses. They adapted to local conditions and put in a lot of effort in this aspect. In the study of alchemy, they were far superior to Huaxia's Shenong school and the Quanzhen school. But at this time, Palace Lord Tan Jun felt that the medicinal pills they refined were far too lacking compared to Jiang Tian's medicinal pill. They could not be compared at all. Just a little. Jiang Tian smiled faintly. This was just an ordinary qi-nourishing pill. Its effects were far from comparable to the vitality-nurturing pill and the vitality-nurturing pill. Master Kong is a descendant of the Medicine King group. He invented many new drugs and swept Huaxia clean. Li Jinju said with a look of admiration. "I've long heard that Master Kong is a peerless scholar who knows everything. Now that I've seen it for myself, it's true." Old Palace Lord Tan Jun had a look of reverence and shock. This Master Kong could make a name for himself with his alchemy skills alone and establish a sect. Not to mention that he was also a martial arts powerhouse and a spell master. Indeed, he lived up to his reputation. "Palace Lord, you're too polite." Jiang Tian also smiled and did not take it to heart. Seeing Jiang Tian's humble attitude, Old Palace Lord Tan Jun could not help but revere Jiang Tian even more. This was the demeanor of a true expert. He suddenly had a brainwave and his eyes flickered as he said, "Master Kong, this junior has a presumptuous request." "Palace Lord Tan Jun, you're too polite. You and I can talk as equals. Just call me by name." Yes, Master Kong." Palace Lord Tan Jun still had a respectful look, making Jiang Tian very speechless. "Let's talk about it." Jiang Tian was helpless and felt a headache coming on. This junior would like to invite Master Kong to be the Palace Lord of Tanjun Daoist Palace. Li Jianxi, Li Jinju, and many of Tanjuan's disciples were dumbfounded by the old Palace Lord's words. Tanjun was the ancestor of the South Korean people, just like Nuwa, Fuxi, and other gods in the eyes of the Chinese. The Palace Lord of Tanjun Daoist Palace was like the ancient imperial preceptor who could communicate with the ancestors. His words represented the will of the gods and could guide the people to the right path and protect the country. The Palace Lord of Tanjun Daoist Palace had a supreme status in South Korea. Even the president had to be courteous and kowtow to him. And now, the old Palace Lord was willing to give up his position to Jiang Tian. How honorable was that? Master Kong, please accept. Li Jinju quickly came to her senses and looked at Jiang Tian with a pleading look. She knew that Tanjun Daoist Palace only existed in name and had lost its legacy. In the eyes of the Japanese overlords, Tanjun Daoist Palace was like an ant that they could crush with a wave of their hand. Now that Jiang Tian was gone, they could make a comeback. The old palace master's decision seemed unreasonable, but it was actually quite insightful and the wisest choice. Tanjun Daoist Palace could only revive Tanjun Daoist Palace by relying on someone as powerful as Jiang Tian. Old Palace Lord, thank you for your kindness. Jiang Tian shook his head with a wry smile and said, but this is not suitable. I am from Huaxia, and Tanjun Daoist Palace is the spiritual symbol of South Korea. I am not suitable to be the palace lord. Master Kong, if you can be the imperial preceptor of Singapore, why can't you be our palace lord? The old palace master's withered hands grabbed Jiang Tian's big hands tightly. His sunken eyes were filled with tears as he begged pitifully, only when you become the palace master can I leave in peace. Singapore has a large population of Chinese, and Li Xianlong is also a Chinese from Southeast Asia. This is different. Jiang Tian declined. He did not want to do things that were not legitimate. His position was not stable, and it was troublesome. Master Kong, if you don't agree, this old man will kneel before you. The old palace lord stood up with tears streaming down his face and knelt down. Only you can revive Tanjun Daoist Palace. If you don't agree, this old man will not rest in peace. He looked up and screamed. He was so anxious that he vomited a mouthful of blood. A man's words were kind when he was about to die. Tanjun Daoist Palace had declined in the old palace lord's hands. He wanted a bright future for Tanjun Daoist Palace, and he did not even care about his dignity. Old Palace Lord. Master Kong, please agree to my master's request. Seeing the old palace lord vomiting blood, many of Tanjun Daoist Palace's disciples exclaimed and knelt on the ground, begging with tears in their eyes. Master Kong, please agree and let the old palace lord rest in peace. Li Jinju, Xing Yue, and the Li family's faces also changed. They quickly knelt on the ground and begged. Jiang Tian helped the old palace master up and sat him down on the bed. He said sincerely, Old Palace Lord, I suggest that Miss Li Jinju take over Tanjun Daoist Palace's legacy. Don't worry, with me here, I will help her revive Tanjun Daoist Palace. Jinju, you and Master Kong. The old palace lord's aura was weakening. He was dying. In fact, the old palace lord had not figured out the relationship between Jiang Tian and Li Jinju. It happened so suddenly that he did not have time to explain. He is Jinju's lover. Don't worry. Li Jianxi held the old palace lord's thin hand and said with tears in his eyes. Good. 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 The old palace lord shouted, good, 3 times, stood up excitedly, and ordered, Tanjun Daoist Palace's disciples, listen up. Palace lord. Listen up. Everyone immediately knelt. From now on, Li Jinju will inherit Tanjun Daoist Palace's legacy and be the palace lord. The old palace lord said loudly. Yes. All the disciples shouted together. Under everyone's witness, the old palace lord passed on the crown, robe, jade seal, jade scepter, and scepter that represented Tanjuan's legacy to Li Jinju. Greetings, Palace Lord Li Jinju. Many disciples kowtowed to Li Jinju, who was wearing a golden crown and robe, and changed the way they addressed her. Li Jinju led many disciples to burn incense and worship the statue of Tanjun, swearing to worship the god. The simple inheritance ceremony was completed. The old palace lord held Jiang Tian's arm with his left hand and waved his right hand wildly. He spat out blood and shouted to the sky. With Grandmaster Jiang as the backer of my Tanjun lineage, why would our Tanjun lineage not worry about not being revitalized? We will prosper. Tanjun Daoist Palace is saved. After saying this, he fell on his bed with a boom. Then, he fell back onto the bed. His eyes closed and he passed away. There was still a gratified and hopeful smile on his face. He died with a smile. Old Palace Lord, below the high platform, hundreds of disciples of the Tao Palace knelt on the ground, wailing and crying. Their voices were mournful. With the support of the Xingyueli family, the destroyed Tanjun Daoist Palace was repaired in a few hours. If it wasn't for the faint smell of gunpowder in the air, everyone would have thought that none of this had happened. Tanjun Daoist Palace also informed the South Korean government and announced this important news to the public. The next day, South Korea's president, Roh Woo-swan, led a group of high-ranking political officials and representatives of society to the Tanjun Daoist Palace, braving the wind and snow. They kowtowed as they walked along the mountain path to meet Lee Jinju, the new palace lord of the Daoist Palace. The various Korean media outlets were also reporting on this matter in great detail. However, the fact that Tanjun's faction had once been controlled by a Japanese expert, as well as the battle between Jiang Tian and Anpei Chinkong-ingo, was kept a secret. The death of the old palace master was also reported as having died of old age. In the next few days, Lee Jinju also made a speech on the media. She said that she would revive Tanjun Daoist Palace and promote the spirit of Tanjun Daoist Palace. Lee Jinju wore a red robe and a golden crown on her head. Posters of her sitting on the throne overlooking the world were plastered all over the streets of South Korea. Her face was beautiful, and she exuded a holy aura. She looked like a goddess who had descended to the mortal world. The ascension of the new palace lord of Tanjun Daoist Palace was a major event in South Korea. It was no less important than the inauguration of a new president. The whole of South Korea was on a 3-day holiday, and people from all walks of life held all sorts of celebrations. Dragon boat races, war drums, firecrackers, gongs, and drums, etc. 3 days later, the busy Lee Jinju finally had time to talk to Jiang Tian about Tanjun Daoist Palace's future. Master, inside an elegant guest room in Tanjun Daoist Palace. It was as warm as spring, and a paper lantern emitted a soft glow. Lee Jinju took off her cloth shoes, revealing her small feet that were covered with cotton socks. She slowly walked in and bowed to Jiang Tian, who was sitting on the heated bed sipping wine and eating some side dishes, before prostrating herself on the ground. She was wearing a traditional South Korean costume. She was wearing a red skirt and a green jacket. She looked dignified and elegant. Her soft, jet-black hair was coiled into a simple bun on top of her head, with a phoenix-shaped antique jade hairpin inserted into it, revealing a section of her snow-white and slender neck and even part of her back. Her fair skin was as white as snow, causing people to daydream. After she knelt down, her round and full buttocks tightened into a round curve. It was extremely seductive. Chapter 376. Get up. Did everything go well? Jiang Tian nodded. Yes, master. Who would dare to defy you? Lee Jinju sat up. She reached out with her slender, jade-like hand and poured wine for Jiang Tian. Her hand was as smooth as spring water. All the powerful fighters in Tanjuan's faction had their blood sucked out of their bodies and lost their cultivation. Who would dare to challenge you? Moreover, their master had indeed turned the tide and saved Lord Tanjuan's lineage. They were also convinced by him. Now, I have taken over all the assets and arranged for my men to take over all the important positions. Tanjuan's faction was not as simple as a Taoist palace. They had controlled South Korea for a few hundred years and had built temples and palaces all over South Korea. They also had charitable foundations and cultural companies. They were as powerful as the Xingyueli family. Other than that, they also had a lot of magical herbs. Although they were not very useful for Jiang Tian's cultivation, they were very useful to the Medicine King group. Therefore, they had sent all of them to South Korea. There was even a 1,000-year-old ginseng that was the most precious of all. This old ginseng had already grown into the shape of a human. It had all 4 limbs and features. It was extremely rare and was about to become a medicine spirit. Jiang Tian accepted it with a smile. After all, he was not short of money. However, these herbs were priceless and he needed them badly. Very good. Jiang Tian picked up a piece of sour and spicy kimchi and nodded approvingly. But Master Kong, I used to represent Tanjun in some foreign affairs and public relations activities. I have never cultivated for a long time. Li Jinju's eyes rippled as she looked at Jiang Tian with a pitiful look. Master Kong, I know that I am not worthy of being your woman and you will not stay in South Korea for long. After you leave, if a strong enemy comes and I don't have any cultivation, won't I be at their mercy? Don't worry. Jiang Tian cracked a smile and said, if you want, I can help you reach the Transcendent Master level in one night. Of course I'm willing, but how is that possible? Li Jinju sucked in a breath of cold air, her face full of shock. Tan Jun's lineage also cultivated both techniques and martial arts. She knew that a martial artist's cultivation was like rowing a boat against the current, and it was filled with difficulties. Every single step forward required 10 years of bitter effort. How could it be as simple as Jiang Tian said? Take this blood pill and you'll be able to do it. Jiang Tian waved his hand and a sparkling, translucent and dazzling pill appeared in his hand. It was the size of an egg and emitted a pungent smell of rust and blood. This is, Li Jinju suddenly understood, her eyes filled with fear. Is it the blood essence that Master extracted from Ingo? Yes. To be exact, it also contains the blood essence of the old palace master and your martial uncles, senior brothers, and junior brothers. Jiang Tian said with an indifferent expression. After you swallow it, I can help you absorb and refine it. Although it is against the laws of nature, it can indeed help you reach the transcendent state overnight. The question is, do you dare or do you want to? The thought of swallowing the blood essence of her senior brothers made Li Jinju's stomach twitch. She was so disgusted that she almost vomited. However, the thought of stepping into the transcendent state in one night was extremely tempting to her. Her eyes gradually became heated and determined. In the end, she pursed her red lips and said with determination in her eyes, okay, I'll do it. Ha, cultivation is indeed the most attractive thing. Jiang Tian looked at Li Jinju who was choking on the blood pill and shook his head gently. He took a sip of liquor. Li Jinju's beautiful eyes were filled with tears as she glanced at Jiang Tian, and she felt extremely resentful and wronged as she muttered in her heart. Master, if I didn't possess any cultivation and was only a mortal woman, how could I have the qualifications to be your servant? After Li Jinju swallowed all the blood pills, Jiang Tian said lightly, take off your clothes and be naked. Ah! Li Jinju was stunned and then became ecstatic. Oh my God, Master finally wants me. She blushed and her watery eyes rippled. First, she went outside and dismissed all the guards and ordered them not to come in no matter what. She then returned to the heated Kong bed and slowly removed her clean cotton socks, revealing her small, slender, delicate, and jade-like feet that were so beautiful that they could not be compared to anything else. Then, she unbuttoned her clothes with trembling hands. Her beautiful face was burning red, and she was so nervous that her clothes fluttered to the ground one by one. In the end, her snow-white and lofty chest, her slender and perfectly round beautiful legs, her lower abdomen that was flat to the point it didn't have a trace of excess fat, and her slender waist that could be held with one's hand were completely revealed before Jiang Tian's eyes. She covered her chest with one hand and nervously stepped on the smooth and warm solid wood floor. Her seductive legs were in an M shape. Her delicate body trembled uncontrollably as she looked at Jiang Tian expectantly and said, Master, please do it. I'm ready. She clenched her teeth and looked as if she was facing death with equanimity. It was said that a woman's first time was very painful. Now, I'll use acupuncture to open up all your meridians and help you disperse the excess heat. Otherwise, it will burn your meridians. Jiang Tian waved his hand, and a few acupuncture needles appeared in his hand as he said indifferently. Huh. This. In an instant, Li Jinju was so embarrassed that she wanted to find a hole to hide in and disappear from Jiang Tian's sight. She straightened and closed her legs. So it's acupuncture. But I thought, so shameful. So shameful. Jiang Tian's acupuncture was like moving clouds and flowing water. His eyes were indifferent and calm to the extreme, like an ancient well without any ripples. In fact, Li Jinju was very beautiful. She could even make his heart ripple a little, but only a little. To him, the body was just the surface. Not to mention, he was helping her absorb the blood pill. The most important thing was that he already had Qing'er. However, Li Jinju looked at Jiang Tian's calm and focused face and her eyes gradually became intoxicated. As long as he nodded or even hinted, she would fall into his arms. However, he didn't have the slightest bit of interest. He didn't even take advantage of her. His fingers didn't even touch her delicate body during the acupuncture. What a noble and pure man. Those vulgar men who couldn't walk away when they saw women couldn't compare at all. However, as Jiang Tian began to use acupuncture to refine the blood pill, abundant qi and blood rushed to all the acupuncture points in Li Jinju's body. She also began to feel hot. Her originally snow-white skin turned pink and sparkling beads of sweat began to seep out. Master, I'm so hot, so uncomfortable. Li Jinju's face was like spring water, twisting her slender waist like a big white snake, and the two snow-white lumps on her chest rhythmically trembled out two dazzling waves, which were incomparably deep, and her two snow-white plump thighs were also tightly clamped together. Don't move. Jiang Tian frowned. He did not even raise his head as he continued to perform acupuncture. Otherwise, why would I ask you to take off your clothes? In ancient times, there was a saying about dispersing your body. It means that after you take a medicinal pill and medicinal powder, you have to wear a wide robe with long sleeves. In fact, you have to walk around naked so that the excess medicinal properties will spread out and prevent your acupoints from clogging and damaging your cultivation base. But I'm so hot. Li Jinju complained. Get into the bathtub. This blood pill contains the essence blood of dozens of experts. How can it be so easy to refine? Jiang Tian had already filled the bathtub with cold water. He directly carried the girl into the bathtub and sat behind her to perform acupuncture. It's still hot. Li Jinju said gloomily. If it's uncomfortable, you can scream. But you absolutely can't move. If the needle is wrong, you'll die. Jiang Tian was helpless. Then I'll scream, Li Jinju suddenly said with an intoxicated face, Master, it's so comfortable. My whole body is soft. She was already immersed in a realm where she forgot everything and even some images that were not suitable for children appeared in her mind. Her voice was charming and seductive. It was simply a wave that overturned the sky and reached a new height. Fuck. What kind of lines are these? How could Jiang Tian not know what she was thinking? Black lines suddenly appeared on his forehead. He wanted to cry but had no tears. He was so angry that his teeth itched. If she wasn't breaking through layer by layer and was at a critical moment, Jiang Tian would have directly slapped her. He made up his mind to stay away from this Li Jinju in the future. It felt very strange to always be thought of by her. Master should be here, right? He controls Lord Tan's branch. The central government rewarded him again. I'll give him a surprise. A vigorous figure dressed in night clothes jumped up and down on the eaves of Lord Tan's palace. It was like a nimble skylark, but also like a vigilant leopard cat. It stepped on the snow without leaving a trace, landed silently, and flew over. Finally, Tang Linglong stood on a palace and was about to land on the ground. She walked toward the big house where Jiang Tian was. Suddenly, her pretty face stiffened as if she was struck by lightning. She was completely stunned on the spot. What is this sound? She seemed to have realized something. Her pretty face was red and then pale. For some reason, a crazy anger filled her heart. She floated to the ground and angrily rushed toward the door. She lifted her leg and kicked the door open. She rushed in with her sword. The scene in front of her made her delicate body tremble like a sieve. Her beautiful eyes were filled with tears. She was so angry that she almost exploded on the spot. In the bathtub, Li Jinju lazily leaned on Jiang Tian's chest. Her pretty face was red and full of satisfaction and joy. Jiang Tian also lazily leaned on the inner wall of the bathtub, looking weak. But when they saw Tang Linglong suddenly come in, both of them were shocked. Even a fool would know what had just happened. Witch! How dare you seduce my master? Go to hell! Tang Linglong was so angry that her full chest violently heaved. Her voice was like the sad cry of an injured little beast. She raised her hand and stabbed her sword. The cold light flickered and was incomparably sharp, piercing toward Li Jinju's neck. What are you doing? Jiang Tian frowned and shouted. With a wave of his hand, a huge pressure blasted out. Tang Linglong was shocked and flew out of the door. Chapter 377. You hit me. You actually hit me for the sake of a witch, for the sake of a bitch. Tang Linglong fell into the snow. She was stunned at first, then she felt sad and aggrieved. Tears rolled down her cheeks. In fact, Jiang Tian's blow was not heavy. It only sent her flying. She was not injured at all. But for Tang Linglong, the psychological blow was unbearable. She heard the sound of her heart breaking. It was like a glass cup falling to the ground and shattering. It was especially crisp. Broken heart. What a good image. It turns out that when a person is too sad, their heart will indeed break. A hazy thought appeared in her mind. She propped herself up on the snow with both hands and staggered out. Where are you going? At this moment, Jiang Tian had changed into a set of clean clothes, walked in with large strides, and asked in a cold voice. Tang Linglong's body stiffened. She wiped her tears and said coldly without looking back, "Where I go is none of your business, Master Kong. Anyway, you have a beauty in your arms and you are free and unfettered. When did you still have me in your heart? You still know that you are my disciple. How dare you talk to me like that? How dare you?" Jiang Tian raised his eyebrows and flew into a rage. You can do it, so why can't I say it? You keep saying that you love Sister Qinger, but what about now? Tang Linglong said stubbornly. The truth is not what you think. Jiang Tian forced himself to calm down and said angrily. I have seen it. What else can the truth be? Master Kong has divine sense. If I didn't sneak in, I wouldn't have seen your true face, Master Kong. Tang Linglong's tone was cold and full of sarcasm, but there were big drops of tears falling from her beautiful eyes. My true face? Humph. What kind of attitude is this? Fine, if you want to leave, then leave. Jiang Tian was annoyed. When had he ever explained anything to anyone? Why don't you explain? Tang Linglong's body stiffened slightly and she asked sadly with tears. Do I need to explain to you? Remember, you are only my disciple. Jiang Tian's voice suddenly turned cold. He turned his head and shouted, Li Jinju, where the hell did you go? Prepare another room for me. He left without looking back. Yes, I'm only your disciple, I'm only your disciple. A disciple that can be expelled from the sect and abandoned like a pair of worn-out shoes. If a disciple dies, he can take in another one. If you don't like it, you can hit and scold them as you wish. Tang Linglong clutched her chest and clenched her teeth. Her face was full of tears as she kept sobbing. You want me to die cleanly, right? Fine, I'll die in front of you. In the next moment, she took a deep breath, and her beautiful face was filled with determination. She staggered out of the courtyard against the wind and snow and disappeared into the deep night. Jiang Tian did not take Tang Linglong's departure to heart. He directly entered a quiet room to meditate and cultivate. Her current cultivation was also very strong. Other than top experts like Xiao Bin, not many people could hurt her. She was not a child anymore. Anpei Qingkong and many other experts who were stationed at Lord Tanjuan's place were killed by Jiang Tian along with the members of the Yamaguchi Gumi. Although the South Korean government kept a tight lid on the news, the earth-shattering battle between Jiang Tian and Ingo was witnessed by many tourists. The news still reached Japan a few days later. Kyushu Island, Nomiya Shrine. The courtyard was filled with cherry trees, acorns, bamboo cypresses, rockeries, and strange rocks. Black palaces overlapped one another. The environment was quiet, ancient, and pleasant. Stepping into the courtyard was like walking into the distant Edo period. In a tea room, 4 people were kneeling on tatami mats. Anpei Qingkong and the new Shinigami Ingo have fallen in Lord Tanjuan's Taoist palace. Anpei Jiping's gloomy eyes flashed with sorrow as he said these shocking words. He was already 100 years old and was Anpei Qingkong's eldest brother. He was one of the top 3 grand onmyojis in Japan. His cultivation was many times stronger than Anpei Qingkong's. Wei Shuofeng of Lingnan, Wang Chongyan of Singapore, and Venerable Master Hongfuan were all inferior to him. If there were any Japanese cultivators here, they would be shocked. The 4 people in the room were all top-tier overlords in Japan. If they worked together, they could dominate Kyushu. How is that possible? There is no one in South Korea who can kill Ingo. A Sword Dao great teacher who was close to 60 years old was in disbelief. His name was Nagaki Miyamoto, and he was the master of Niton first-rate kendo. He had reached the level of a kendo grand teacher and was rumored to be as powerful as an immortal state warrior. Although he was already in his 60s, he didn't look old at all. His thick eyebrows extended to his temples, and his nose bridge was high. His eyes were glinting brightly as he looked around. His back was as straight as an unsheathed sword, exuding a domineering aura. I heard that he is from Huaxia. Another man chimed in. His aura was dark and gloomy as if he had blended in with his surroundings. If he used ninjutsu, he could even disappear on the spot. He was one of the top ninjas in Haga, and one of the top 10 ninjas in Japan, Hattori Hanzo. Huaxia. Nagaki Miyamoto was shocked. Ingo is as powerful as an immortal state warrior, but there are no immortal state warriors in Huaxia. Even Yi Zhantian is only half an immortal state warrior and is on par with Ingo. Could it be that an elite from the Yin sect of Huaxia has appeared? Ancient Wudang? Ancient Diansang? Or the sword cultivators of Mount Shu, ancient Kunlun? That's impossible. Hattori Hanzo pondered for a long time before finally shaking his head. From what I know, the cultivators of Huaxia's hidden sects pursue the supreme heavenly Tao in order to become immortals and gods and ascend. They have never interfered with the affairs of the mortal world. They didn't even intervene during the war between China and Japan. The Yin sect will not intervene unless it is the end of the world. Anpei Jiping nodded in agreement. Masters, I have received accurate information that the man is not from the Yin sect. He is an elite from the secular world of Huaxia. A charming woman in a black kimono with a white flower on her chest said with a smile. Her hair was tied up high, revealing her snow-white neck. She was about 40 years old, with a fiery figure and a curvaceous figure. She was as seductive as a honey peach, making one unable to resist the urge to take a bite. Ishii Yurin, an elite from the secular world. Could it be Yi Zhantian? When Nagaki Miyamoto looked at her, there was a burning desire in his eyes, but it quickly disappeared. A woman must be beautiful and filial. The widow, Ishii Yurina, was actually already a middle-aged woman, but her phoenix eyes were still as gentle as water. Her jade-like skin was set off by the black mourning clothes, making her appear even fairer. In addition, her chest was half hidden, and the alluring fragrance she emitted was enough to steal one's soul. Any man who saw her would want to press her down on the bed and ravage her. But even Nagaki Miyamoto dared not underestimate her. She was the current leader of the Yamaguchi Gumi, the largest yakuza organization in Japan. She was proficient in kendo, ninjutsu, and yin-yang jutsu. She was very powerful and ruthless. Her husband, the former leader of the Yamaguchi Gumi, Tian Ganga, died in his home. Rumor had it that it was her doing. But over the years, she had used bloody means to suppress the leaders who wanted to betray her and firmly controlled the Yamaguchi-gumi. In the entire Japan, she could do whatever she wanted. She could drink and chat with the mayor of Nagasaki and was highly regarded by the higher-ups of the Sakura Society. She was known as the queen of the Japanese underground world. Nagaki Miyamoto was confident in his martial arts, but he did not want to touch her. Besides, at his level, what kind of beautiful woman was not at his fingertips? It's not him. Everyone, please look. Ishii Yurin smiled and put the tablet on the coffee table. She clicked on a video. The video was very short, only 5 seconds long. It was the scene of Jiang Tian falling from the sky and crushing Ingo with one foot. Hiss. After reading it, everyone was stunned. Their expressions were incomparably solemn, and their eyes were filled with fear. They all sucked in a breath of cold air. Falling from a height of a few hundred meters and breaking the sound barrier with one foot. This martial arts, even Nagaki Miyamoto couldn't help but gasp. He said in a trembling voice, and this person is so young. Where did he come from? He should be Kang Tae-chu from Huaxia. Abe Yashihei's face was solemn. He pondered for a long time and said slowly. As soon as the words came out, it was like a giant invisible sponge that absorbed all the noise. The entire tea room was dead silent. Only the faint sound of the black horseshoes under the eaves could be heard. Kang Tae-chu. The number 1 Grand Master on the Divine Roll in Huaxia, the number 3 Overlord on the Dark Roll. He was said to have reached the immortal state and was the youngest overlord in the world. The number of famous overlords who had died in his hands was countless. Hong Tianzhao, Lin Zhenyu, Oyila, Grand Master Qinglian, Wang Chongyan, Xiao Bin, and many other overlords from the Dark World, such as the King of Assassins, S-level mutants, and werewolves. No one would dare to fight against such an overlord unless it was a superpower. Even a small country like Singapore, which was economically powerful but militarily backward, had to rely on him and treat him as the state teacher of Singapore. It really is him. Even if Ishii Yu-yen was mentally prepared, when he really believed that this person was Jiang Taichu, his heart jumped and his face turned ugly. The other 3 were also shocked and surprised. They had never thought that Kang Tae-chu would come to South Korea and kill the Japanese overlord in Lord Tan's palace. What does he mean? Is he helping Lord Tan because he is on good terms with them, or is he pointing his sword at the Japanese cultivation world? Nagaki Miyamoto furrowed his brows and asked. When these words came out, Ishii Yuyen and Hattori Hanzo were both shocked and stunned. It was the first time in decades that someone pointed his sword at the Japanese cultivation world and became the enemy of the Cherry Blossom Society. The Cherry Blossom Society was much more powerful than the Winter Soldiers and the Chinese Society of Singapore. They had a long history and had many overlords. They were on par with the Blue Storm and the Palace of Gods. Besides, the Cherry Blossom Society was backed by the Japanese royal family, the government, and the Japanese self-defense forces. Was Kang Tae-chu really that bold to fight against the Cherry Blossom Society? It was unbelievable. Chapter 378. I don't care if he has the intention or not. He deserves to die for messing with the Ampere family and the Sakura Society. Ampere Jipping's sinister eyes flashed with a cold light and murderous intent as he said in a deep voice, Ishii Yurin, send someone to keep an eye on Kang Tae-chu. Hattori Hanzo, Nagaki Miyamoto, you two are on standby. Once Kang Tae-chu leaves South Korea and attacks Japan, kill him immediately. Yes. My lord. The 3 of them bowed together, and a terrifying murderous aura surged out, filling the tea room. While Nomiya Shrine was moving, Jiang Tian had already made arrangements for Tanjuan's family. Xing Yuli family's 3C business was also handed over to Qin Jiafu's giant egg network. Qin Jiafu and Yuan Ning were extremely grateful to Jiang Tian. They went to the Taoist palace and thanked Jiang Tian again and again. It could be said that Jiang Tian only needed to say a few words to get the business that they had been begging for months without success. Grandmaster Jiang, we hope that you can come to Yanjing when you have the time. Let us do our part as a host and express our filial piety and gratitude. Yuan Ning and Qin Jiafu went to the Taoist palace together. After bidding farewell to Jiang Tian, they invited him with a smile. I will definitely go to Yanjing. Jiang Tian smiled, but a glint of sharpness flashed in his eyes. Seeing this, Yuan Ning's heart skipped a beat. She was worried for Song Shuangyan. She even saw the president of South Korea, Roh Wuyun, waiting outside to meet Jiang Tian. He was the ruler of a country, but he had to wait for Jiang Tian. With Jiang Tian's current power, he might not be able to crush the Song family, but he could at least give them a headache. Grandmaster Jiang, that's great. We'll definitely welcome you with open arms. Qin Jiafu hadn't thought of this yet, and said excitedly. In his heart, Master Kong was like a god. He never dared to dream of being on equal footing with Jiang Tian. But if Jiang Tian were to go to Beijing, he would be able to help him drive, carry his bags, arrange trifles, and wait for orders. Being Jiang Tian's henchman was equivalent to hugging a thick thigh. As for Jiang Tian, even a little bit of soup leaked out from between his fingers was enough for him to eat until his belly was round. The two of them didn't dare to delay Jiang Tian too much. After expressing their gratitude, they got up and left. Jiang Tian suddenly waved his hand and said, "Oh right, Qin Jiafu, remember, never sign a performance-based gambling agreement. This will only harm you." Our investor, Sun Zhengyi from Japan SoftBank, wants to sign a performance-based VAM agreement with me. How did you know? Qin Jiafu was shocked. God, as expected of a god, foreseeing the future. Don't worry about it, just don't sign it. Jiang Tian was too lazy to explain. Yes. Don't worry. Master Kang's words are an imperial edict to me. Qin Jiafu thanked him and went over. When they went down the mountain, Yuan Ning took the initiative to hold Qin Jiafu's hand, which made Qin Jiafu very excited. This, Yuan Ning. What are you doing? From now on, Brother Fu, let's date. Yuan Ning's beautiful eyes curved into a beautiful crescent moon shape. This, why? That day when Master Kong was fighting with the Zombie King, you pushed me away without caring about your own safety and blocked the flying rocks for me. From that day onwards, I decided. Yuan Ning held his hand tightly and smiled. I know, you're not good with words, but you love me in your heart. Okay. I'll definitely treat you well. Qin Jiafu was so moved that his eyes turned red, and he once again thanked Jiang Tian in his heart. Damn, he could tell that there was a girlfriend just by watching a fight. The goddess actually fell in love with him. At noon, Li Jinju brought breakfast and served Jiang Tian. She said a little embarrassedly, Master, that day. Did I cause some misunderstanding? What's with you shouting like that? If you dare to do that again, I'll slap you to death. It would have been better if she didn't mention this, but once she did, Jiang Tian was also a little angry, and he glared at her and scolded. Yes, Master, this servant won't dare to do it again. Li Jinju was so scared that her face turned pale and she trembled. After waiting for Jiang Tian to finish eating, she put away the bowls and chopsticks and looked at Jiang Tian. Is that young lady from yesterday your disciple? Will this matter spread to your wife's ears? Don't worry, my wife trusts me a lot, she won't misunderstand. Jiang Tian said indifferently. Quickly putting this matter to the back of his mind, Jiang Tian left the room, pulled Li Jinju onto the flying sword, and quickly arrived at a place with abundant spiritual energy. Master, what are you doing? Li Jinju was puzzled. Jiang Tian took out a bunch of winchim grass seeds and planted them. He then set up a small spirit-gathering formation at the side and said, This is very important to me. These few days, I've been looking around Snow Peak and found that this place is suitable for planting. You have to look after it in the future, don't let anyone take it away. Actually, from the moment Jiang Tian set foot on Snow Peak, he found that the spiritual energy here was much more abundant than that of Mount Fulong. However, he still couldn't move his entire family here. After all, the Jiang family's foundation was still in Jinling and the Medicine King group. He could only settle for the next best thing, which was to plant the Winchim grass and absorb the spiritual energy here to make the vitality enhancement pill in the future. Yes, master. I'll guard it strictly. Li Jinju's expression turned serious, and she quickly agreed. Treat it as the most important secret, don't let too many people know. Jiang Tian reminded her worriedly. A stalk of Winchim grass was as effective as a supreme-grade pill. If any cultivator found out about it, they would probably be beaten to a pulp. I understand. Li Jinju was very smart. She immediately understood what Qin Xiaobei meant. After that, Jiang Tian's operation in South Korea came to an end. He stretched his body and said, it's time to go to East Asia. I'm afraid the East Asians have already found out about it. Master, are you leaving now? Li Jinju asked reluctantly. She was completely captivated by Jiang Tian. Yeah, South Korea doesn't have a lot of resources. Other than Lord Tan, what else can I get? Jiang Tian yawned dispiritedly. Master, let me accompany you to East Asia. I'm already a phenomenal stage cultivator. Li Jinju tugged at Jiang Tian's sleeve and begged. I won't be a burden to you. That's enough, Jinju. I understand your filial piety, but it's not appropriate for you to go. Jiang Tian shook his head. Li Jinju was reluctant to part with Qin Xiaobei. Then, she begged again. The South Korean government officials and tycoons want to meet you during Lord Tan's ceremony. Can you stay for 2 more days? I don't have time. Jiang Tian shook his head, causing Li Jinju to feel like they were fated, and she almost cried. After sending Li Jinju to Lord Tan's palace, Jiang Tian was about to fly to East Asia on his flying sword. Suddenly, Jiang Tian's cell phone rang. Mom? Jiang Tian looked at the caller ID and quickly answered the call. Jiang Tian, I'm coming to South Korea now. Are you still there? Pick me up at the airport in 3 hours. Mom, why are you here? Why are you here? Jiang Tian was confused. What do you mean? Zhang Wanqing retorted. The International Medical Exchange Conference is being held in South Korea, and we are here to attend it. What's wrong? You are having too much fun outside, and you don't even want to meet me? I'm more than willing to meet you. Jiang Tian immediately agreed and smiled. Okay. I will go and pick you up now. 3 hours later. Seoul International Airport. A Gulfstream G550 commercial jet slowly landed on the tarmac. This jet was custom-made by Medicine King Group from U.S. Gulfstream Aerospace. It costs 300 million hua, has 20 seats, a meeting room, a bar, and a restaurant. The interior is made of genuine leather. In 2009, not to mention the ordinary people, even among the rich people in China, it was considered a great luxury. However, Zhang Wanqing did not even hesitate for 3 seconds before signing the contract. The cabin door opened, and Zhang Wanqing and Old Master Zhang, accompanied by Yi Ziwei, Shen Mange, and others, got off the plane. Jiang Tian only brought Li Jinju with him. A commercial vehicle picked them up and drove them out of the airport, heading straight to Star Moon Hotel. Tian, this is my first time overseas. Old Master Zhang held Jiang Tian's hand and smiled. That's right. That's weird. Don't you hate going overseas? Why do you insist on going overseas this time? Jiang Tian asked with a frown. In his opinion, medicine was a small matter. His grandfather and mother should focus on their cultivation. But he knew that his grandfather was passionate about Chinese medicine and had devoted his life to it, so he did not blame him. Korean medicine is applying for the World Heritage Site. Old Master Zhang slammed his walking stick on the car and said angrily. If they succeed, they will be recognized internationally. There will be no Chinese medicine in the world. There will only be Korean medicine. About that. Grandpa, what's your plan? Jiang Tian was stunned for a moment before he understood what was going on. He smiled understandingly and said in a mocking tone, Korean medicine originated from Hua Xia's Chinese medicine. The Neijing, Materia Medica, treatise on febrile diseases, diagnosis, and prescriptions are all adapted from Hua Xia's Chinese medicine. The four symbols medicine that they are so proud of is also adapted from Hua Xia's Taoist theory of yin-yang and 5 elements. But South Korea likes to take other countries' things for themselves. For example, they had successfully taken Chu Yuan, Li Bai, Feng Shui, and Xian Shu as their own and even applied for the Dragon Boat Festival. They even criticized Hua Xia for celebrating the Dragon Boat Festival. They even changed their capital from Seoul to Seoul. They think this way, they can get rid of Hua Xia's influence and satisfy their self-esteem. If we have the ability, we can erase 60% of the Chinese characters in their language. Let's see if they can still speak. Jiang Tian, you are right. Old Master Zhang agreed. Jiang Tian still remembers. In his previous life, in 2009, Korean medicine's application for the World Heritage Site was successful, and the whole Hua Xia was in an uproar. His grandfather was furious and got drunk that night. He even fell ill and was sent to the hospital. On the hospital bed, Old Master Zhang grumbled that Hua Xia's Chinese medicine was not united and everyone was fighting for themselves. He also said that the relevant departments were not doing enough to promote and develop Chinese medicine, but Old Master Zhang could only sigh. In this life, it seemed like the old man wanted to fight with them. Old Master Zhang is too cunning. Chapter 379. Master, you're right. We will take this as a warning. At the side, Li Jinju's beautiful face was slightly red, full of shame. That's right. This girl is from South Korea, and she knows this. It would be great if all South Koreans are as sensible as her. A hint of pride and smugness appeared at the corners of the old man's eyes and eyebrows. The Chinese medicine people from the southern faction of China have elected me as the spokesperson of the southern faction. They want to compete with the TKM in terms of medical skills and have a talk with the staff of the World Intangible Cultural Heritage Preservation Group, he sighed. There's still a long way to go. Fine. Let's get them. Jiang Tian chimed in. Those bastards. As long as our Chinese medicine is still around, they won't be able to do anything to us. That's only one of the reasons. Other than that, we also found out that Medicine King Group's imitations have appeared in South Korea. Yi Ziwei frowned. Detoxification pill, small revitalizing pill. 7 of our core medicines, including the Rising Dragon Yijing pill, which is only sold to the military. What? These South Korean pirates are too arrogant. Jiang Tiandu was stunned and could not believe what he had just heard. The main ingredients were listed on the packaging of the medicine, but the ratio and manufacturing process would not be listed. If the South Korean pharmaceutical manufacturers were patient and capable of experimenting, they would be able to replicate Jiang Tian's formula. Of course, without the core component, the reactor, the effect would be greatly reduced. But if the dosage was increased, the effect would be much better than normal medicine. Li Jinju blushed and was speechless. She wished she could bury her head in her pants. These are the South Korean imitations, made by a company called Daewoo Pharmaceutical. Yi Ziwei took a few samples from the accompanying staff and handed them to Jiang Tiandao. Fuck. Plagiarist. Jiang Tian scanned the imitations with his divine sense. The ratio of the ingredients was almost the same, but the manufacturing was slightly different. Who is this old man? Looking like a sly old fox. Jiang Tian pointed at the picture of an old man with slick back hair, gold-rimmed glasses, and a white coat. Pu Qingtai. Yi Ziwei said, the chairman of South Korea's TKM Medical Association, the dean of Kyunghee University's TKM Medical School, the #1 doctor in South Korea's TKM Medical School, and the chairman of Dayu Pharmaceutical. He's also the person in charge of the TKM application this time. Master, I know this person. Li Jinju hurriedly said, I can help you inform him to stop the infringement, make a public apology, and even pay compensation. I know you are a man of your word in South Korea. Waving his hand, Jiang Tian faintly said, but this is a battle between TCM and TKM, and it involves the righteousness of the nation. We can't rely on external forces, and we have to defeat them fairly. Yes. Master. Li Jinju hurriedly nodded. If it's not necessary, don't make a fuss. I'll take care of them myself. Jiang Tian said with a smile. Soon, the car arrived at the Star Moon Hotel. Jiang Tian let Li Jinju leave first. After settling down with his family, they immediately went to the conference room on the 4th floor for a meeting. It turned out that the Jiang family was not the only one who came. There were also many reputable physicians in Huaxia. It could be said that the TKM application had caused an uproar in the TCM industry in Huaxia. Any one of these people was an expert in their respective fields. They were famous and could be the distinguished guests of high-ranking officials and rich people. Even socialites had to be courteous to them. Old Jiang, it's been a long journey. Madam Zhang, you're finally here. When Jiang Tian and his group walked in, many Chinese physicians stood up and warmly greeted Jiang Changeng and his group. Jiang Changeng was the representative of the Southern School of Medicine. A few years ago, Jiang Changeng might be famous, but he wasn't the representative of the Southern School of Medicine. But ever since the Medicine King Corporation's new medicine was released, the Jiang family's status immediately rose. Jiang Changeng was also regarded as the leader of the Southern School of Medicine. As for Jiang Tian, he had kept a low profile. His shocking medical skills were only known to the Jiang family, and outsiders did not know about it. They only treated him as the young master of the Jiang family. He was not bothered by their disrespect. He sat in the corner behind his grandfather and played with his phone. He was reading the information about Pu Qingtai's family that Li Jinju had sent him. Other than Jiang Changeng, there was also a secretary of the TCM promotion department under the Ministry of Health. He was also the president of the Chinese Medicine Association. His name was Mo Zhengrong, and he was the leader of the TCM exchange team. Mo Zhengrong was in his 40s. He was wearing a black suit and white shirt, which was standard for an official. His hair was neatly combed. When it came to the development of TCM, he was eloquent and insightful. He seemed to be a scholarly official. With Jiang Changgeng's arrival, the atmosphere of the meeting reached a climax. Everyone rubbed their palms together. With old Jiang's presence, they were confident that the TKM team would be defeated. However, after Jiang Changgeng arrived, Mo Zhengrong did not start the meeting immediately. It was as if he was waiting for someone important. Elder Zhang is here. Zhang Yanghao, the leading figure of the northern faction and the expert of the Imperial Hospital. I heard that he's also the outer elder of Shinong School. At this moment, a few people walked in. Everyone stood up in unison. The sound of chairs being flipped could be heard in the hall. Everyone exclaimed. The northern faction was led by Zhang Yanghao, a veteran imperial doctor, accompanied by his disciple Chen Jishe. Thank you for your hard journey. Zhang Yanghao was wearing a moon-white robe. He was hale and hearty. His face was ruddy, and he looked like an immortal. He cupped his fists at everyone. It's not hard at all. It's worth dying to see Elder Zhang. Their eyes were full of reverence as if they had seen a deity. Even Mo Zhengrong did not dare to neglect him. Some people even shed tears of excitement. Zhang Yanghao's position was too special. He enjoyed the special allowance of the Government Affairs Council. He was a Changjiang scholar, the chief academic advisor of Huaxia's Chinese Medicine Association, a professor of the School of Chinese Medicine of Yenjing University, and the director of the Imperial Hospital. More importantly, he was also the outer elder of Shinong School. What kind of existence was Shinong School? He was no longer an ordinary Chinese medicine doctor, but a divine doctor, a living deity. They had heard that he could make pills and medicine, use qi to control needles, and had the ability to bring the dead back to life. They, including Jiang Chang'an, were only powerful in the secular world. How could they compare with such a transcendent existence? Some people looked at Jiang Chang'an with complicated and gloomy eyes and sighed with worry. Chen Junbin, the former deputy director of Yanjing Tianwei Pharmaceutical Company, is Zhang Yanghao's junior brother. Chen Junbin was said to have been angered to death by the Medicine King Group's press conference. Now that Zhang Yanghao has met Jiang Chang'an, will he fight to the death? However, there were also some people who rejoiced in Jiang Chang'an's misfortune. I don't know where Jiang Chang'an got those prescriptions, but in terms of medical skills and academic standards, he can't be compared to Zhang Yanghao. I'm afraid Zhang Yanghao is going to give him a hard time and embarrass him. Although Mo Zhengrong was a technocrat, he was still a bureaucrat. He immediately took precautions and said with a smile. Regardless of whether it's the south or the north, they all belong to the Huaxia. TCM is still a family. I believe that under the leadership of Old Zhang and Old Jiang, our TCM exchange delegation will definitely become famous and defeat TKM. We'll raise the prestige of our country. Someone said kindly, "Come, Divine Dr. Zhang and Divine Dr. Jiang," the two elders, one from the south and one from the north, were originally separated by thousands of miles. Now that they have finally met, come, shake hands. Old Zhang, I've been looking forward to meeting you for a long time. It's my pleasure to finally meet you today. Jiang Chang'an had always been modest, polite, and kind to others. He quickly stood up with a face full of joy, and wanted to shake hands with Zhang Yanghao. Zhang Yanghao's face was arrogant as if he didn't see anything. He ignored them and sat down in the middle. Let's not be so polite. This isn't an ordinary academic exchange, nor is it a treat. It's a life and death struggle. TKM isn't that easy to deal with. Let's start the meeting. Jiang Chang'an's hand stiffened in the air as his face flushed red with embarrassment. He knew that Zhang Yanghao hated him for defeating Tianwei Pharmaceutical and infuriating Chen Junbin. But could he be blamed for this matter? If Chen Junbin hadn't colluded with the Jinling Herbal Group to splash dirty water on the Jiang family, how could they have faced such a calamity? Jiang Chang'an, what Southern Medical School's top medical expert? You think you're qualified to sit on the same level as my master with your insignificant skills? You're just a clown. Zhang Yanghao ignored him, while a young man in his 20s retorted with disdain. Your Jiang family's medical skills are trash. I don't know where you got your prescriptions from, but you're just trying to fool the world. He was Zhang Yanghao's grandson, Zhang Xuanhu. He was a member of the Imperial Medical Hall and had received Zhang Yanghao's teachings. His medical skills were shocking, and he was known as the Little Divine Doctor in Beijing. Countless tycoons came knocking on his door just to ask him to take their pulse and prescribe a prescription. The entire room fell silent. Everyone stared at Zhang Xuanhu in shock, their mouths agape. Even Mo Zhengrong was in a dilemma. It was understandable that they looked down on each other secretly. But they didn't expect him to be so arrogant and not give Jiang Chang'an any face at all. There were also some who looked at the Jiang family with mockery as if they were looking at a joke. The Jiang family had risen too quickly, and the TCM market was only so big. The Jiang family had eaten so much, and the other TCM companies and families were having a hard time. Furthermore, people were more or less two-faced, and they were jealous. As the saying goes, it's better to die than to die. On the other hand, Zhang Yanghao seemed as if he didn't hear anything. He sat there calmly and took a sip of tea, not stopping him at all. Zhang Yanghao, what's with your attitude? Kneel down and apologize to Elder Jiang immediately. Just as everyone was feeling awkward and speechless, a cold voice suddenly resounded throughout the entire place. Everyone saw a girl beside Jiang Tian stand up. Chapter 380. Who's this girl? She seems to be a staff member of the Jiang family. She's too rude. How dare she speak to Zhang Yanghao like that? She's too arrogant. Everyone was shocked when they saw Shen Mange stand up and speak arrogantly to Zhang Yanghao and Zhang Xuanhu. There was an uproar at the scene. Some of Zhang Yanghao's disciples were enraged and scolded her harshly. Shameless boasting. You have no respect for your elders. You're courting death. Little girl, do you want to die? Do you know that if your words are spread outside, you'll be torn apart by Elder Zhang's followers in minutes? Little girl, how dare you speak to my grandfather like that? I think you're asking for a beating. Zhang Xuanhu rolled up his sleeves and approached Shen Mange. He looked like he was going to beat her up. Mo Zhenrong quickly pulled him back and said to Shen Mange, Miss, don't be unreasonable. Zhang Yanghao turned his head and looked at Shen Mange. His eyes widened. When he saw Jiang Tian next to her, his heart skipped a beat. He was so shocked that he almost fainted. Then, under everyone's gaze, he walked quickly to Jiang Tian. He lifted the hem of his robe and knelt down in front of Jiang Tian. He said respectfully, Disciple Zhang Yanghao pays respect to Master. Greetings to Madame Mange. His face was full of shock and reverence, as if he was a follower who saw a god. Disciple Chen Jishir pays respect to Master Kong and Madame Mange. Chen Jishir's face was also ashen. He quickly knelt behind them. Hiss. In an instant, everyone sucked in a breath of cold air. Everyone looked as if they had seen a ghost in broad daylight. Their eyes almost popped out of their sockets. How could this be? Zhang Yanghao was a leading figure in the field of Chinese medicine in Huaxia. He was the director of the Red Wall Imperial Medical Hall, the chief academic advisor of the Chinese Medicine Association, and the Changjiang scholar. How respected was his position? How deep was his academic foundation? But at this moment, he actually knelt down and bowed to a kid in his early 20s, and even called him his teacher. This was simply too inconceivable. Teacher. What's going on? Everyone was confused. They watched in horror as Zhang Yanghao, the leading figure of Chinese medicine, kowtowed to Jiang Tianqing respectfully. Get up. However, you're not my disciple, and you're not worthy. Jiang Tian's face was calm. He picked up the teacup, took a sip of tea, and said indifferently. Back then, he had set up an altar in Shinnong School, preaching and answering questions for half a month. Zhang Yanghao, as an outer sect elder, had also listened to the lecture below the altar. In just 2 short weeks, it was as if he was listening to the teachings of an immortal. He was enlightened and deeply inspired. Many mysteries and difficult problems were solved, and the level of his medical skills improved significantly. He was deeply grateful to Jiang Tian. In his mind, Jiang Tian was his teacher, or even a high and mighty immortal. But Jiang Tian didn't think so. He was very strict when it came to choosing disciples. Only talents, character, loyalty, and many other conditions could be met. If anyone who received a few words of guidance from him was called his disciple, then he would have too many disciples. Master Kong, Zhang Yanghao had just stood up, but when he heard the second half of the sentence, his body stiffened. He was anxious and almost burst into tears. At this moment, he finally understood that Jiang Tian was the son of the Jiang family in Jinling, the grandson of Jiang Changgang. He regretted it very much. He had been blinded by hatred and had been rude to Jiang Changgang. He was afraid that it would be difficult for him to receive guidance from Master Kong in the future. Sit down and continue the meeting. Seeing everyone's suspicious eyes, Shen Mange didn't bother to explain and directly ordered indifferently. Elder Jiang, Master Kong, and Madame Mange, please take the main seat. Everyone, make way. Zhang Yanghao immediately gave up his seat and said politely. That's right, this way please. Although Mo Zhenrong found it inconceivable, he also knew that this Master Kong was definitely an expert. Thus, he immediately went along with it. I'm fine sitting here. It's quiet. You guys can continue with your work. Jiang Tian waved his hand and refused. He had also heard their discussion. It was nothing more than arguing with reason and verifying history to prove that TCM was the origin of TKM. Wasn't it a little too naive? It was like scratching an itch through a boot. We would like to ask Elder Jiang, Madam Mange, and Master Kong to give us some guidance. Zhang Yanghao said respectfully. Jiang Tian lowered his head and played with his phone. He didn't even bother with Zhang Yanghao. Jiang Changgang also tactfully refused. Zhang Yanghao had no choice but to sit down. Suppressing his uneasy heart, he opened his script and prepared to speak. Behind him, Zhang Xuanhu frowned and mumbled, "Grandpa, why did you kneel to him? He's just a brat." Zhang Yanghao turned around and slapped him. He scolded angrily, "Ignorant brat. Master Kong is the head of the Shinong school. He's a peerless scholar, and his medical skills are unfathomable. Even Zhou Zimu has to call himself his disciple. How dare you speak so arrogantly?" Hiss. Everyone gasped. They were so shocked that their eyeballs almost popped out of their sockets. Their hearts were in turmoil. Their expressions changed as they looked at Jiang Tian. Shinong School. What kind of existence was that? It was known as the origin of TCM. All medical skills in the world originated from Shinong. The disciples and successors of Shinong were like living fossils. The people of Shinong School were no longer traditional TCM. They didn't use the 4 diagnostic methods of looking, listening, questioning, and feeling. Instead, they practiced medicine. They were proficient in making pills, drawing talismans, and the art of blessing. Their medical skills could revive the dead. They were like gods in heaven. No matter how capable Zhang Yanghao was, he was only an outer elder of the Shinong school. He begged for many years before he was able to join. However, this person was the head of the Shinong school. He was able to make the head of the Shinong school call him his disciple. Was he still human? "Grandpa, you're joking, right?" Zhang Xuanhu covered his face in shock. He couldn't help but laugh. "I'm joking. Bastard, hurry up and kneel down." Zhang Yanghao was so angry that his face turned pale. He pointed at Zhang Xuanhu and shouted, "Grandpa." Zhang Xuanhu's face turned red as he begged. He realized that what his grandpa said was true. In terms of seniority and status, he should kneel down to Jiang Tian. However, Jiang Tian was young, and he was around the same age as him. He couldn't accept kneeling down to Jiang Tian. "Forget it, let's continue with the meeting. There's no need to bother about these details." Jiang Tian smiled. They were just ants. He could crush them with a single palm. There was no need for him to be calculative with them. The meeting continued as usual. However, with Jiang Tian present, Zhang Yanghao felt uneasy. Even though he had prepared a speech, he still couldn't help but be tongue-tied. Sweat dripped down his forehead, and he would look at Jiang Tian from time to time to check his expression. After he finished speaking, everyone expressed their opinions and discussed how to destroy the TKM's application for the intangible cultural heritage. Suddenly, there was a commotion at the entrance. Someone seemed to be quarreling, and the door of the meeting room was kicked open. A group of burly men dressed in black, and there were more than a dozen of them, barged in. Their faces were sinister, and their eyes were cold. They were tall and muscular, and there were dragon and tiger tattoos on their arms. With a single look, one could tell that they weren't easy to deal with. "Who are you guys? How dare you barge into our meeting room?" Zhang Yanghao flew into a rage and slammed the table. "We heard that you guys are terrorists from Huaxia, and you guys intend to destroy the international medical exchange. Thus, we intend to kick you guys out." The person in the lead was 2 meters tall. He had a beard and hair that reached his shoulders. He placed his hands on the table and looked down at everyone. He spoke in choppy Mandarin with a sinister smile. "Nonsense. We're here for an academic exchange. Scram. Zhang Xuanhu pointed at the burly man's nose and roared. Oh, it's rare for me to see such a gutsy Hua Xia. The long-haired man smiled sinisterly. He suddenly grabbed Zhang Xuanhu's finger and flung it upwards. In an instant, Zhang Xuanhu shrieked in pain. His finger was bent at an abnormal angle, and the crisp sound of bones breaking resounded. The Zhang family's medical skills were top-notch, and they had come into contact with some martial artists. Zhang Xuanhu had also learned some martial arts. Although he was only in the iron body primary stage, it was impossible for 3 to 5 burly men to get close to him. Since Zhang Xuanhu was at a disadvantage, he immediately retaliated with a side kick toward the waist of the long-haired man. Trash! The long-haired man countered with a kick. Pang! Bam! The two legs collided. Zhang Xuanhu was sent flying like a rag doll. His leg was broken, and he couldn't even stand up. He rolled on the floor in pain. Everyone was dumbfounded by this sight, and panic filled the room. They didn't expect the South Korean and Korean doctors to be so arrogant as to come knocking on their door. Is there anyone else who dares to come up? The long-haired man slapped Zhang Xuanhu as though he was swatting an ant. As he asked, he put his finger on the conference table with a smile. Only a hissing sound could be heard. Bam! The conference table, which was more than 3 centimeters thick, was pierced through by his finger as though it was made of tofu. In an instant, everyone sucked in a breath of cold air. Their hearts shuddered, and cold sweat trickled down their foreheads. They were capable of saving lives and scolding others passionately. However, they were a far cry from fighting. This person was clearly an expert, and they weren't a match for him. Should we call the police? Someone asked. It's useless to call the police. Someone shook his head and pointed to the door. Did you see that? There are police officers outside, and they're colluding with us. They're waiting for us to make a move, and they'll arrest us. How dare you beat someone up in broad daylight? Is there any law in this world? Is there any justice in this world? Mo Zhengrong stood up and slammed the table as he roared, "We're from Huaxia's Traditional Chinese Medicine Association, an organization protected by the law. We're here to participate in the academic exchange, and I want to inform our country's embassy to protest and condemn you. Do whatever you want." The long-haired man sneered and continued fearlessly, "Get out of South Korea right now. Otherwise, I'll beat you up every time I see you." Mo Zhengrong instantly understood what was going on. His face paled, and his heart sank to the bottom. TKM's application for the World Heritage Site was a huge matter, and if Huaxia interfered and obstructed their application, they would suffer a huge loss. This was something that many organizations were unwilling to see. A Korean medicine company like Daewoo Pharmaceutical Company was worth 200 billion won, and it was normal for them to hire a few fearless criminals to disrupt Huaxia's TCM delegation. Even if the embassy were to protest, they might even pursue the matter. However, TKM's application for the World Heritage Site was successful, and it could be said that they had paid a small price for a huge victory. Chapter 381. President Mo, have you made up your mind? Do you want me to give you a hint? While he was still in a daze, the long-haired man waved his hand. A dozen men in black pulled out their swords wrapped in newspaper and pressed them against the necks of the Chinese physicians. Forget it. Why don't we return to China? It's too dangerous in South Korea. That's right. We can't afford to lose our lives. Why don't we return to the embassy first and come back tomorrow night for the academic conference? Let's go. We can't stay here any longer. It's more than 10 kilometers from the embassy. What if we encounter danger along the way? The Chinese physicians had never seen such a scene before, and they trembled in fear. Tears almost rolled down their cheeks. Weaklings. Bullying Huaxia people is so satisfying. Seeing this, the long-haired man and the other South Korean hoodlums laughed triumphantly. Historically, South Korea was heavily influenced by Huaxia's culture, and they sent tributes to the Chinese court every year. In recent years, Huaxia's economy has risen, and their international status is rising. South Korea's influence as one of the four little dragons of Asia is in danger, and many South Koreans have a distorted sense of pride. That's why they hate Huaxia. At this moment, when they saw how everyone was trembling in fear, their vanity was so satisfied that it was about to explode. We can't leave. Master Kong, what do you think? Zhang Yanghao had been through a lot, but he still felt uneasy when he saw this. He looked at Jiang Tian, hoping that Jiang Tian would step in. In fact, he didn't have much hope. After all, many of them had offended Jiang Tian and disrespected the Jiang family. Will Jiang Tian be willing to stand up for them? Unexpectedly, Jiang Tian did not do anything, but Yi Ziwei stood up and walked to the conference table. Huh? What is she doing? This little girl is so pretty. If I can have my turn with her, it's worth it even if I have to sacrifice 10 years of my life. When the South Korean thugs saw the beautiful Yi Ziwei, they almost drooled. They were thinking that they can touch her and tear her clothes when they bring her out. Wouldn't that be great? A mocking smile appeared on Yi Ziwei's lips. With just one kick, the conference table, which weighed more than a few hundred kilograms, rolled away like it was made of foam. The flying table directly knocked the long-haired man who was the closest to it and sent him flying. The conference table smashed into the heads of several big men, causing them to lie flat on the ground. Their bones and tendons were broken, and they spat out mouthfuls of blood. Some of their sternum was broken, and their internal organs were pierced. After the dust settled, Yi Ziwei glanced coldly at the shocked crowd and said disdainfully, "How dare a few Koreans insult us Huaxia people? How strong is this kick?" Mo Zhengrong, Zhang Yanghao and many Chinese medicine doctors from Huaxia were stunned and couldn't believe it. She seems to be old Master Jiang Changgeng's granddaughter. Yes, that's right. She was the one who hosted the Jiang family's new product launch. She's a heroine. The Jiang family is as imposing as a tiger. Everyone praised and had a good impression of the Jiang family. Damn it. Chop her up. The long-haired man struggled to stand up. He felt a warm sensation on his forehead, and when he touched it, he was furious. He picked up a long knife and pointed it at Yi Ziwei. She's really going to hurt someone with a weapon. How lawless. Be careful, Madam Yi. Some of the Chinese medicine doctors were filled with righteous indignation, while others were frightened. There were more than a dozen big men, and all of them were armed. Yi Ziwei was alone, and she was unarmed. She might not be able to defeat them. While everyone was worried, the South Korean hooligans had already reached Yi Ziwei. The first person who rushed up was kicked in the chest by Yi Ziwei. He knocked over 3 to 4 people behind him and slid 5 to 6 meters away. The people behind him all vomited blood and screamed. The second person who came to Yi Ziwei's side was slapped unconscious by her. The third person was sent flying with a backhand punch, and the fourth person's leg was broken by a kick. Yi Ziwei continued to attack as she closed in on the long-haired man. These people were no match for Yi Ziwei. Yi Ziwei's movements were beautiful, as if she was otherworldly. However, every punch and kick was powerful and fast as lightning. Before the thugs could make a move, they were already hit. The dozen or so thugs in front of Yi Ziwei did not even last half a second. When Yi Ziwei arrived in front of the long-haired man, there were no more thugs left. Evil woman. Evil woman. The long-haired man's face turned pale. Even though he was a notorious gangster in half of Seoul, he was still frightened and his body trembled slightly. Perhaps people liked to use such supernatural terms for powerful things that they could not understand. He screamed in fear. The scene was filled with ghostly wails and howls. Everyone's hair stood on end, and they looked at Yi Ziwei with fear. Yi Ziwei slapped him in the face. An irresistible force hit him. The long-haired man flew 3 meters away and fell to the ground. His head hit a coffee table, and the table was smashed into pieces. Police! Director Kwon. The long-haired man screamed in fear. He was afraid that Yi Ziwei would beat him to death. That's quite a commotion. Looks like these Hua Xia people are being toyed with. The police officers did not expect the long-haired man to be killed. They were smoking and chatting outside. Like these thugs, they had been arranged by the Yu Pharmaceutical Company and Pu Jingtai's family to obstruct the Hua Xia Academic Exchange Group. If the thugs succeeded, they would not have shown up. If these Chinese medicine doctors dared to make a move, they would be arrested for causing trouble. But they did not think there was a need to make a move. With these thugs scaring them, they would probably run away. After all, they were just a bunch of weak scholars. Something's happening. Let's go in and take a look. Hearing the long-haired man's screams, the police officers threw their cigarettes on the ground and rushed in. They were immediately dumbfounded. This was too tragic. Dozens of thugs had broken bones and tendons. Some were even unconscious. No one knew if they were dead or alive. Li Zhenglong, the leader of New World, who dominated half of Seoul, had his leg broken and was crying for his parents. Most importantly, the one who did it was a beautiful woman in a branded business suit. This was unbelievable. Shiba! Director Quan Zhengyu of the Dezhong police station shouted angrily. He pulled out his gun and pointed it at Yi Ziwei. Stop! Or I'll shoot. He took someone's money and had to help them. To put it bluntly, he was just a dog raised by Daewoo Pharmaceutical Company. The rest of the police officers also pulled out their guns. But suddenly, many of the guns flew out of their hands. The police officers were dumbfounded. What was going on? How come the pistol can fly now? Quan Zhengyu could not figure it out, but he still pointed at Yi Ziwei and the others arrogantly. Kneel down and put your hands on your heads. You are suspected of assault. Go to the police station to assist in the investigation. A translator explained the situation to everyone. This is too much. They were the ones who came to beat us up first, okay? We were only defending ourselves legally. Everyone was so angry that they were about to go crazy. Zhang Yanghao's lungs were about to explode. He shouted. You are twisting the truth. The police are gangsters. This is too much. This is too much. Mo Zhengrong wiped the cold sweat off his forehead when he saw the police had taken out their handcuffs and was about to arrest them. He quickly called the embassy to inform them of the situation. The embassy staff told him that this was a troublesome matter. If the police were the ones who attacked first, the embassy's legal team can guarantee everyone's safety out of South Korea. But they will have to go through legal procedures. Currently, the visiting team still has to cooperate with the local police and abide by their country's laws. Also, if the beating was serious, it might be considered excessive self-defense, and they might even be held accountable. Clap. Clap, clap. At this time, with a few crisp claps, an enchanting woman in luxurious clothes, wearing sunglasses, and carrying a limited edition Gucci handbag walked in with several bodyguards around her. She was wearing pink high heels. Although she was wearing sunglasses that covered most of her face, just by looking at her jade-white sharp chin, one could tell that this girl was definitely a stunning woman. She was chewing gum and laughed proudly. Ha! Caught by the police. How are you going to challenge TKM? What a joke. Don't worry. The medical industry is one, and I will send lunch boxes to all of you. Who is she? Although the other party was speaking in Korean, everyone could tell from her tone that it wasn't anything good. Her name is Park Yoon-jong, the granddaughter of Korea's Sungtae. She's also the current CEO of Daewoo Pharmaceutical Company. She is also known as the #1 lady of TKM in South Korea. Someone immediately replied. Hiss, it's actually her. Everyone sucked in a breath of cold air. Park Yoon-jong's family is one of the top 10 families in South Korea in terms of wealth and political influence. Park Yunjong can talk to the mayor of Seoul and even talk to the president of South Korea. Park Yunjong had learned TKM from her grandfather and later graduated from the Ivy League Business School. She is known as the Queen of South Korea's business school. She is capable and ruthless. Under her management, Daewoo Pharmaceutical Company had fought a series of battles with international pharmaceutical giants and became the #1 pharmaceutical company in South Korea and one of the top 20 pharmaceutical companies in the world. Even if the Jiang's Medicine King Group is known as the #1 pharmaceutical company in Huaxia, they are still inferior to Daewoo Pharmaceutical Company in terms of wealth and international influence. In South Korea, Park Yunjong is known as South Korea's 4 great socialites, along with Star Moon Corporation's Lee Fujin, Hyundai's Jong Mungshin, and Korea's Housing Corporation's Choi Eun-hee. This is all part of her scheme. What's the point of setting up a trap? If you have the guts, then compete with us in medical skills. Everyone instantly understood what was going on and gnashed their teeth. However, there's nothing they could do about it. Pu Yunjing's snow-white feet stepped on a pair of pink deerskin crystal diamond-studded high heels as she walked over. She has a tall and slender figure with curves in the front and back. Her silver-gray dress wrapped around her long legs, making her look sexy. But she has a harmless baby face, fair skin, and exquisite makeup. She looks like a superstar. However, her face was arrogant and her eyes were full of disdain. Her temperament was like that of a demoness in Prada. She crossed her arms and looked down at the crowd. I advise all of you to abide by South Korea's laws and cooperate with the investigation. This is not Huaxia. All of you might be influential in Huaxia, but it's useless here. Chapter 382. Sigh, I'm going to die before I can achieve anything. Am I going to watch TKM gain fame by deceiving the public? Mo Zhengrong sighed in despair. At that moment, he wished he could buy a block of tofu and knock himself to death. They were entrusted by Huaxia's Chinese medicine industry, and they had high hopes for them. Now, with just a little trick, everyone was locked up in the police station. Tomorrow, there was no need to think about competing in medical skills. However, if they were to return in defeat like this, with their faces covered in dirt, how could they face the sincere hopes of Qi and Huang, and how could they face the leisurely mouths of the citizens? Some of the Chinese medicine practitioners shook their heads and sighed. Some gritted their teeth with tears in their eyes. Some clenched their fists and cursed loudly. But there was nothing they could do. In fact, Pu Yunjing was right. In Huaxia, they were all at the level of national masters. Their names shook the region, and their hands and eyes reached the sky. However, they were in South Korea, a foreign country. They had no relatives, and no one knew them. Now, even the embassy was useless. What else could they do? They were puppets at the mercy of others, lambs at the mercy of others. You're Pu Yunjing, right? Jiang Tian put away his phone, stood up, and walked over with a cigarette in his mouth. HM. Who are you, handsome? Are you a famous doctor? It's rare to see such a young Chinese medicine practitioner in Huaxia. Pu Yunjing pinched Jiang Tian's chest and looked at Jiang Tian curiously. She suddenly realized that this young man was very handsome. He had a unique aura that was both masculine and demure. He was many times more handsome than those South Korean male celebrities who had undergone plastic surgery. If she could hook up with him and sleep with him at night, wouldn't that be great? I'm the young master of the Jiang family's Medicine King Group. You should know that you plagiarized our products, right? Jiang Tian blew a mouthful of smoke at her face, causing her to cough and wave her hands. You're slandering me. If you dare to say another word, I'll send you to hell. Pu Yunjing glared fiercely at Jiang Tian. If you apologize to me now, I'll spare your life. If you don't, I'll make sure you die a horrible death. Jiang Tian looked at her and said seriously. What did you say? Pu Yunjing looked at the serious Jiang Tian as if she was looking at an idiot. She couldn't believe her ears. Then, she covered her bright red mouth and laughed. She laughed so hard that tears almost came out. You really have a sense of humor. So cute, so funny. This is the funniest joke I've ever heard. After laughing for a while, she finally stopped. Then, she looked at Jiang Tian with a mocking expression and said, You country bumpkin from Huaxia want me to apologize to you? Do you know that when I go to Huaxia, your governor and mayor have to bow and scrape when they see me? Do you know that one word from me can make it impossible for you to survive in Huaxia and hit a wall everywhere? She was right. Since Huaxia's reform and opening up, for a long time, attracting investment was the top priority of the local government. They treated these foreign businessmen like their grandmother was the god of wealth. They even gave these foreign businessmen preferential treatment. Over time, they thought that they were better than Huaxia people and didn't put Huaxia people in their eyes. Oh, so you're not going to apologize? Jiang Tian smiled faintly and suddenly started to roll up his sleeves. What are you doing? Pu Yunjing opened her eyes wide and looked very curious. She looked very cute. Is he going to hit me? At this moment, her heart was calm and she even wanted to laugh. She was so beautiful, like a fairy. How could he bear to hit her? Moreover, there were so many bodyguards and police officers around. How could he dare to hit her? Before she could finish her words, Jiang Tian heavily punched into Pu Yunjing's stomach. Pu Yunjing didn't even have the chance to scream. Her two eyes opened wide and then turned white. Her mouth was wide open and drooling. Her whole body hung weakly on Jiang Tian's fist. The handbag she was carrying weakly fell to the ground. Jiang Tian grabbed the girl's beautiful black hair and put his cold eyes close to the girl's frightened face. He said, Fuck you, you dare to plagiarize my family's product? I'll teach you a lesson. Are you grateful? Pu Yunjing didn't even have the strength to cry. She could only look at this fierce man with teary eyes. Her stomach was still pressed against Jiang Tian's fist. I'm asking you if you're grateful. Jiang Tian coldly asked again. His fist left the girl's body and then he displayed his amazing inch strike. His burning fist once again smashed into the girl's stomach. Pu Yunjing opened her mouth and with a cry, she spat out a large pile of tomato skin and thick liquid. Yi Ziwei pondered, did she eat borscht for lunch? Maybe it was scrambled eggs with tomatoes. Zhang Wanqing lightly said. Are you grateful? How dare you not be grateful? Jiang Tian smiled coldly, and threw out another punch full of heroic spirit. Pu Yunjing knelt on the ground and swayed as she spat out a pile of unrecognizable things. Girls of her age liked to eat random snacks, and her nutrition was out of balance. I'm asking you, are you grateful? Jiang Tian squatted on the ground and pinched the girl's chin. Although the girl probably felt that she was about to die, she was still moved by the man's social education. She weakly said, yes. Grateful. This girl was worthy of being the queen of Korean business. She was able to see the big picture. Jiang Tian lazily stood up and said, I'll let you live for now. Let's see how you perform later. The girl's hands were unable to hold her stomach and cry. She had completely given up on vomiting and calling for help. Her head was on the ground, and her body was curled up on the ground like a snail that was sprinkled with salt. How dare you hit Mississippi Park? You. Arrest him. Quan Zhengyu was dumbfounded. He even forgot to stop Su Tao and only reacted at this moment. After all, no one expected that Su Tao would really hit a socialite who was like a princess. Mister, you're suspected of intentional assault. Please cooperate with the investigation. Several policemen were covered in cold sweat as they held onto their batons and pistols tightly as they approached Jiang Tian. They knew that this matter had blown up. Pu Yunjing was actually beaten up. If they didn't take down the culprit, it would be a serious dereliction of duty. They would be stripped of their uniforms and punished. I'll see who dares to arrest her. All of a sudden, a cold voice sounded out. Everyone looked towards the source of the voice and saw the crowd parting like a tide. A beautiful woman wearing a long dress that reached the ground was about to collapse. She was tall and slender. Including her high heels, she was more than 1.78 meters tall. She looked down on the crowd like a high and mighty empress. Even Pu Yunjing felt ashamed of her inferiority. Her pair of beautiful eyes swept over. The coldness and arrogance in her eyes made everyone lower their heads. She was like a queen who walked out of an icy kingdom. Who's this woman? She looks familiar. How dare she speak up for these Huaxia people? Isn't she afraid of offending Pu Yunjing? A gangster whispered into Li Jinglong's ear. Shut up. She's the eldest princess of the Xingyue family. Li Jinglong's eyes were filled with fear. He glared at the gangster fiercely and trembled uneasily. That was because this woman was someone whom they could only look up to. She was the eldest princess of the Xingyue family, Li Fuzhen. Li Fuzhen. The gangster who asked the question earlier instantly understood. He was so scared that his face turned pale and he immediately kept quiet. Miss Li, Quan Zhengyu had a bad feeling when he saw Li Fuzhen. He walked up uneasily and squeezed out a smile. I'm sorry, there was a fight here. We're here to carry out our mission. It was an emergency so we didn't inform you. Humph, you're really bold. Li Fuzhen snorted coldly. She had a cold personality to begin with. Now that she was furious, her face was covered in frost. She sneered. Mr. Jiang and his group are our distinguished guests of the Xingyue Hotel. Why did you arrest them? Quan Zhengyu was stunned when he heard this. His unshaven face was covered in cold sweat. How was this possible? Wasn't he part of the Huaxia Chinese medicine academic delegation? How did he become Li Fuzhen's distinguished guest? Li Fuzhen was the daughter of the Xingyue family, the most powerful family in South Korea. In terms of background and influence, not even Pu Yunjing could compare to her. She was not someone the police could afford to offend. Even the mayor of Seoul had to be polite to Li Fuzhen, let alone their director. But how would someone of Li Fuzhen's status know a young Huaxia Chinese medicine practitioner? He tried to explain, Miss Li, I'm sorry. I really didn't know. Otherwise, I wouldn't have dared to do this. Li Fuzhen could not be bothered to look at him. She bowed respectfully to Jiang Tian and said, Mr. Jiang, I'm sorry I'm late. I just received news that you're staying in this hotel. I didn't expect them to do something like this. She was really angry. Not to mention that Jiang Tian was invincible, invulnerable to weapons and invulnerable to fire and water, he was like a god. Jiang Tian had defeated the Japanese and saved Tan Jun's family. He had even helped her sister, Li Jinju, to become the palace master of the Taoist palace. Jiang Tian had thwarted Li Zherong's scheme and saved the entire Xingyue family. Jiang Tian had used a miraculous pill to save her father, Li Jianxi, who was the soul of the Xingyue family. Jiang Tian had saved her from the hands of villains and prevented her from being humiliated. In her heart, Jiang Tian was like a second parent, a great savior. But now, a few bastards had insulted Jiang Tian and even wanted to take Jiang Tian away from her family's hotel. If this really happened at the Xingyue Hotel, wouldn't the Xingyue family be sinners? How would she have the face to face Jiang Tian? Nothing. Jiang Tian glanced at the long-haired man, Li Jinglong, and said calmly, he came to disrupt our meeting and wanted to expel us. He even used a knife to attack people. Thump. Li Jinglong's legs went soft and he fell to the ground. He was so scared that he almost peed. Jiang Tian pointed at Quan Zhengyu and said calmly, these policemen are inverting right and wrong. They're in cahoots with these villains. They won't listen to our explanation and insist on arresting us. Miss Li, please listen to my explanation. Quan Zhengyu's body was cold. His legs went soft and he almost couldn't stand. Chapter 383. You don't have to explain. I have already informed your director. You will be punished, and the prosecutor will be involved in the investigation. Li Fujian's words were understated, but Quan Zhengyu's heart fell straight into the nine-nether abyss. He looked at Pu Yunjing pleadingly, hoping that she could help him. After all, they were working for the Park Jingtai family. Little did he know that the moment Li Fujian entered the room, Pu Yunjing was so scared that her legs started cramping. When Li Fujian apologized to Jiang Tian, she was so shocked that her heart almost jumped out of her throat. That was Li Fujian, Li Jianqi's daughter. Even her grandfather, Park Jingtai, had to put on a smile when he saw Li Fujian. The Park Jingtai family and Dayu Pharmaceuticals were only in the pharmaceutical industry. To be precise, Korean medicine was doing well. But compared to the Star Moon Lee family and Star Moon Group, the top conglomerate in South Korea, they were nothing. The Star Moon Group only needed to pull out the medical department of Star Moon Chemical to be able to suppress Dayu Pharmaceutical. Pu Yunjing did not dare to say a word. She shuffled toward the door, but how could Li Fujian let her go? Yunjing, Pu Yunjing was so shocked that her whole body suddenly trembled. She lowered her head and stepped forward like a quail. She said with a smile, "Miss Li, I was just playing with them, shut up." Li Fujian's face turned cold as she roared. She looked at Pu Yunjing with an exasperated look and said coldly, "What did you say when you got financing from Star Moon Financial? You said that you want to bring Korean medicine to greater heights and focus on product development. You said that you want to develop your own intellectual property. But you plagiarized Medicine King Group's product. They haven't even said anything, and you're here to pick a fight." When Li Fujian faced Jiang Tian, he was like a believer seeing a god, trembling with fear and treading on thin ice. But when facing Pu Yunjing, she was completely like a high and mighty empress, ordering people around and giving orders. This was the reason why she displayed the monstrous arrogance of the Star Moon Lee family's eldest princess. "I didn't." Pu Yunjing still wanted to explain. However, he was immediately interrupted by Li Fujian. She snorted coldly and said, "This is Star Moon Group's hotel, and you dare to be so presumptuous. It's clear how you usually behave. If that's the case, I think Star Moon Group should withdraw its investment. I'll have a good talk with Mr. Pu Jingtai." Li Fujian's words were icy cold, and every single one of them was like a spear and a sword that pierced Pu Yunjing's heart, causing her face to turn ghastly pale and she was on the verge of collapse. "What are you waiting for? Get out of here!" Li Fujian shouted angrily. Yes. I'm leaving now." When Pu Yunjing came, she was arrogant and insufferably arrogant. But when she left, she was covered in dirt and grime, as if she had lost her parents. She was as panicked as a stray dog. Her legs were so weak that she couldn't even walk properly. She had to be carried out by 2 assistants. "Mr. Jiang, if anyone dares to cause trouble, please inform me immediately. I am willing to protect you." Li Fujian helped the TCM delegation change to another meeting room before he sent someone to send Zhang Xuanhu to the hospital before he spoke respectfully. "Yeah, thank you for your hard work. You can leave first. We still have a meeting to attend." Jiang Tian nodded his head. At this moment, everyone looked at Jiang Tian in a different light. The Jiang family's crown prince was too formidable. His connections were so extensive that he even knew the eldest daughter of the Star Moon Li family, Li Fujian. "Divine Physician Jiang, what's your relationship with the eldest daughter of the Li family?" Someone couldn't hold back his curiosity and asked. "Friends," Jiang Tian couldn't be bothered to explain. He turned to Shin Mange and said, "Follow her. This time, I want to ruin her reputation." "Yes, master." Shin Mange nodded her head solemnly and left the hotel silently. "Friends?" Everyone looked at each other. Why did it feel like they were meeting a leader when they saw him? Mo Jinrong patted Jiang Tian's shoulder and praised, "With Divine Physician Jiang around, we're even more powerful than the embassy. At the very least, we can wrestle with the TKM doctors fairly this time." Only Zhang Yanghao's eyes lit up. He seemed to have understood something. He heard that Master Kong had swept through Southeast Asia. Could it be that he has also conquered South Korea? That night, Pu Yunjing went to a bar angrily and called a few of her close friends over for a drink. These people were the scions of the richest tycoons in South Korea. If they worked together, they could do anything in South Korea. The young master of Hyundai Industries, Zheng Chuha, and the vice chairman of Korea Real Estate, Choi Junhee. One of them was her admirer, and the other was her best friend. Other than that, there was also the young master of Letian Entertainment, Im Dong-yuan. Letian Entertainment was one of the biggest entertainment companies in South Korea. They had produced many blockbusters like A Winter Love Song, Killing Memory, and many others. Under Im Dong-yuan's banner, there were many famous artists and directors in South Korea, Hwa Xia, and even the entire East Asia. Choi Junhee was dashing, but he looked a little effeminate. Putting his arm around Pu Yunjing's shoulder, he said, "Yunjing, why are you angry? Don't worry about it. Hwa Xia's TCM isn't a match for TKM. Junhee, it's not as simple as you think. If TKM's application is successful, it will be equivalent to obtaining the Western world's recognition, and Daewoo Pharmaceutical Company might even be able to enter Western Europe and America's market." Zheng Chuha might have pursued Pu Yunjing for many years, but he was not surprised by Choi Junhee's intimacy. After all, this fellow did not like women. Zheng Chuha had a straight nose and a square mouth. His hair was slicked back, but he did not look old. On the contrary, he gave off a domineering aura. Sipping on his red wine, he smiled. Although the success rate of TCM causing trouble is low, we can't afford any mistakes. If we fail, then Yunjing's years of effort will be wasted. With a charming smile, Choi Junhee replied, "Then let's teach them a lesson during the International Medical Skills Exchange. I have a few ferocious men under me, and the United States Marine Corps has hired them. They're great at fighting. They're not something that trash like Li Zhenglong can compare to. But Li Fuzhen has her eyes on him, and she's protecting that Hua Xia man. So how are we going to make a move?" Pu Yunjing said in despair. "That bitch is a disgrace to us women. She actually likes that ugly Hua Xia man." Choi Junhee curled his lips in disdain. His attitude was that of a woman's. "Yunjing, don't worry. That man is only Li Fuzhen's pet. Li Fuzhen's private life is messy, and she has at least 100 pet boys. So we don't have to be too concerned about it." Zheng Chuha smiled and said, "Mr. Pu Zhengtai is a great benefactor to the patriarchs of the major families. Moreover, we're doing this for the development of TKM. This is for the sake of the nation." At the side, Im Dong-yuan interrupted, "Li Fuzhen does have some strength, but with our three great families working together, I'm afraid she'll have to think twice. She's not a fool, she won't fall out with us over a boy toy." Zheng Chuha said, "I suggest that we report this matter to our families tonight. When the time comes, let the elders suppress Li Fuzhen. No matter how strong she is, she's just a junior. How can she go against so many elders? Li Jianxi won't support her either. As for us, we'll teach Hua Xia TCM a lesson." When everyone heard that, they nodded in agreement. "If you can persuade your parents, then there won't be a problem. Chuha, you're the best," Pu Yunjing said with gratitude and surprise. Zheng Chuha, Choi Junhee, Im Dong-yuan, the families behind them combined were enough to compete with the Xingyue Li family. If they worked together, Li Fuzhen would have to think twice. If it was a conflict of interests, Li Fuzhen might fight to the death for the Hua Xia kid. However, Li Fuzhen did not dare to fall out with them because of a pet boy. Moreover, there were their elders. The visiting group from Hua Xia TCM would be completely suppressed. At that moment, Zheng Chuha said excitedly, "Oh, right. I heard that the new palace master of the Tanjun Daoist Palace, Li Jinju, will be hosting the Tanjun celebration at the Seoul International Convention and Exhibition Center tomorrow night. When the time comes, everyone must build a good relationship with her. She'll be there too. That's great. Everyone was excited. Li Jinju was the new palace master of the Tanjun Daoist Palace. Tanjun was the faith of the South Koreans. She was their ancestor, the god of creation. The palace master of the Daoist Palace was Tanjuan's spokesperson. It was no exaggeration to say that she was like a queen. Even the president treated her like a god and obeyed her every word. If they could curry favor with Li Jinju, it would be equivalent to gaining the support of the government. In terms of finance, industrial land, and industrial policy, they would receive extremely favorable support. What's so great about her? Is she prettier than me? Is she prettier than me? Choi Jun-hee said with a face full of jealousy. The palace master of the Tanjun Daoist Palace is not a competition of beauty. She's an expert who has been enlightened by Tanjun. Pu Yunjing looked at him mockingly. Don't say such things. If his believers hear you, they will tear you to pieces. The Choi family will also be boycotted by the public. Zheng Chuha gave Choi Jun-hee a warning look. He was so scared that his face turned pale. He secretly cursed the sissy for talking big. They chatted for a while longer. Pu Yunjing looked at the time, then stood up and said, Everyone, I'll leave you to it. I still have some things to do. Yunjing, we haven't talked for a while. Why are you leaving? Zheng Chuha said reluctantly. I'm really busy. Tomorrow is the most important day. Victory or defeat depends on it. Pu Yunjing waved her hand and smiled sweetly. She was so cute that Zheng Chuha almost fainted from her charms. Zheng Chuha walked her out of the bar. He put his hands in his pockets and smiled elegantly. Yunjing, you drank a lot just now. Are you okay? Do you want me to drive you? I'm fine. I brought a driver. Pu Yunjing's beautiful eyes were as clear as water. She took his hand and looked at Zheng Chuha gratefully. Thank you, Appa, for supporting me. After the application is over, how about we start dating? There seemed to be a trace of intoxicating tenderness between his fingers. Zheng Chuha was so happy that he almost fainted. He laughed in disbelief. Yunjing, am I hallucinating? If Appa can't accept Yunjing, Yunjing will be very sad. Pu Yunjing lowered her head and smiled shyly. She was as pure as a white lotus. Zheng Chuha was stunned. After Pu Yunjing drove away in the BMW sports car, Zheng Chuha was still standing there in a daze. He said with an intoxicated face, For you, I would go through fire and water. Chapter 384. Pu Yunjing soon arrived at the car park of a 5-star hotel. She put on her sunglasses to cover half of her face and went to a presidential suite on the 5th floor. Beautiful Miss Pu, TKM's application has been approved. We just need to announce it tomorrow. But you also have to fulfill your promise, right? A golden-haired, blue-eyed man with thick hair and a burly figure sat on the sofa with a big belly. He smiled and said, I wonder how Miss Pu would like to thank me. He was the person in charge of UNESCO's Intangible Cultural Heritage Protection Group. At the same time, he was also a famous medical scientist. He was a tenured professor in America's Washington Medical College and also an academic consultant for several medical journals. Charles, I've said that I won't treat you unfairly. Pu Yunjing took off her sunglasses and took out a paper bag from her purse. She handed it over and said, bearer bonds issued by Daewoo Pharmaceutical Company with a face value of $2 million USD. The liquidity in the market is very good. You can exchange them at any financial institution. Miss Pu is a trustworthy businesswoman. Charles nodded his head in satisfaction and shrugged his shoulders. But the conditions you mentioned before don't seem to be limited to these, right? Of course, I didn't forget. Pu Yunjing smiled faintly and unbuttoned her shirt, revealing her snow-white and towering chest. Subsequently, her skirt, underwear, her clothes fell to the ground one by one. You're really an enchanting little vixen. Charles's gaze gradually heated up, and his breathing became heavier. In the end, a delicate body with exquisite curves, snow-white skin, and tight curves appeared, like a white rose that quietly bloomed in the dark night, completely exposed before his eyes. Miss Pooh, you're amazing. You're simply like an angel that brings warmth to the cold world. 10 minutes later, Charles, who was sweating profusely, roared with a satisfied smile on his face. There's one more thing that I need your help with. Pu Yunjing held a thin female more menthol cigarette in her mouth and lit it with a custom-made lighter made of pure gold. She leaned on the bed wrapped in leather and said, "If there's a suitable price, I can help." Charles had the face of a shrewd businessman. Huaxia's Medicine King Corporation might file a lawsuit against us for intellectual property infringement. Pu Yunjing explained the situation to him. I want to know if you guys are really infringing. Otherwise, I can't help you. Charles felt the seriousness of the situation. His brown bear-like body sat up, picked up the Camel cigarettes on the bedside, and put one in his mouth with a solemn expression. Pu Yunjing hesitated for a brief moment before she bitterly smiled. It's a real infringement. We purchased a lot of their herbs and used the most advanced biochemistry experiment to analyze the effective ingredients. Then, we used 8 months to imitate them using different ratios. She took out a stack of documents from her purse and handed them to Charles. She sighed and said, I didn't expect these Huaxia country bumpkins to have such a strong sense of intellectual property protection. They actually found out. They also want us to stop production and compensate for their losses. They will file a lawsuit in Huaxia, which is naturally disadvantageous to you. Charles quickly flipped through the information and shook his head. Therefore, we must get an authoritative appraisal from the International Intellectual Property Office to prove that our drug is original. I see that there's an additional ingredient in your medicine. Why do you say that it's an infringement? Charles asked. You don't understand Eastern medicinal herbs. Pu Yunjing said, the medicinal herbs I added have mild medicinal properties. In short, they are ineffective ingredients. At least, they have no effect on this prescription. You're a smart person. Looks like you've thought of this day a long time ago. Charles reached out his bear-like hand and pinched the girl's supple and smooth buttocks. He smiled and praised. But I didn't expect it to be so fast. Charles, can you help me with this? Give me a clear answer. Pu Yunjing panted and whispered into Charles's ear. The director of the International Intellectual Property Office's appraisal center is my senior. I think if you're willing to pay 5 million USD, he should be willing to help you. Charles gritted his teeth. However, he also likes gentle Eastern women. I'm afraid you'll have to serve the two of us this time. No problem. I like the two of you who are strong the most. If we can enjoy good sex together, that's even better. Pu Yunjing said vaguely. They didn't know that outside the room's window, a graceful and vigorous body was lying there like a gecko. At this moment, with a soft swish, she jumped down like a nimble leopard cat and landed silently. Shen Mange got into a red Mercedes-Benz sports car, turned on the camera, clicked the play button, and enjoyed the video. Both the picture and the sound are very clear. Military products are of excellent quality. She chuckled and stepped on the accelerator. The Mercedes-Benz sports car rushed out of the parking lot like a red lightning bolt and disappeared into the night. At 8:00 the next day, Li Fuzhen arranged a number of luxury cars to send Jiang Tian and the Chinese medicine delegation to the venue of the celebration of the successful application of choreo medicine. Jinju is preparing to attend the Tanjun ceremony and accept the worship of many senior officials and rich businessmen. She can't accompany you, so she arranged for me to accompany you. But she still hopes that you can attend the Tanjun ceremony in the evening. Li Fuzhen said with a sweet smile. She was wearing a red evening dress and a diamond necklace around her neck. Although she was 35 years old, her eyebrows were picturesque, and she had a mature charm. Her skin was white and lustrous, which still gave people a feeling of radiance, like a princess in splendid dress. Thank you for your hard work. Jiang Tian did not comment and got into a Lincoln limousine. The rest also got into the limousine. The motorcade drove along the wide street and headed straight to the Seoul International Convention and Exhibition Center in Gangnam District. In the car, Lee Fujin smiled. Actually, if Master Kong is willing, he can stop the application with just a word from Jinju. Why do you have to go through the trouble of competing with them? No, the medical world has its own rules. What matters is the effect, the ability to treat patients. Jiang Tian smiled faintly. I can't use my authority to oppress others, but I have to convince them with my skills. I have to make the South Korean medical community accept their defeat. Yeah, Jiang Tian is right. Beside them, Jiang Chang'eng also nodded in agreement. Mo Zhengrong and Zhang Yanghao also nodded their heads. I never imagined that there would be such a magnificent man in the world. Li Fujin looked at Jiang Tian's handsome side profile as Jiang Tian's words echoed in her ears. For a moment, she was captivated. She felt that she had met so many men, but none of them could be compared to Jiang Tian. I hate that I didn't meet him before I got married. If I was 10 years younger, my sister wouldn't be here. Her heart was filled with surprise, tenderness, regret, and disappointment. Her heart was filled with hundreds of knots, hundreds of twists and turns. The Seoul International Convention and Exhibition Center was located beside the Han River, overlooking the Jianghuawan Bay at the mouth of the Han River. The strangely shaped building protruded out of the sea like an island. Under the bright sunlight, the glass dome shone with a dazzling luster. The nearby roads were heavily guarded, and luxurious cars drove into the 2,300 space parking lot under the guidance of the security guards. Luxurious cars and celebrities gathered in the parking lot. Today, the celebration of TKM's application was held here. The World Medical and Pharmaceutical Exchange Conference and Tan Jun's celebration were held here. Many tycoons and celebrities from South Korea, including politicians and dignitaries, attended the event. Under Li Fujin's guidance, Jiang Tian and his entourage alighted from the car and walked towards the main hall of the Convention and Exhibition Center. At the same time, a group of reporters rushed towards them. Zhang Yanghao smiled proudly and said, I didn't expect Huaxia's traditional Chinese medicine to be so popular. But in the next moment, his smile froze on his face, and he could no longer smile. The reporters walked past them and went straight to a Mercedes-Benz behind them. This. Zhang Yanghao was embarrassed. The door of the Mercedes-Benz opened, and with the help of Pu Yunjing, who was wearing an ancient Korean costume, an old man with white hair and a white beard got out of the car with a smile. He's Park Chung-tae. He's very popular in South Korea and even internationally. His Chung-tae Medical Center has even opened in New York and Washington. Li Fujin, who was wearing sunglasses, introduced. Jiang Chang'eng's face turned green as he said angrily. It's just TKM, and they had only learned bits and pieces from TCM. But now, they want to establish their own brand and gain the recognition of the international community. They want to suppress TCM. This is the biggest joke in the world. That's right. They even stole the Medicine King's patent and took it for themselves. They are no different from thieves. Zhang Yanghao supported Jiang Chang'eng and said angrily. All these years, the Ministry of Health has not given enough support to TCM. Our next step is to increase our funding and policies. We also need to promote TCM in public. In fact, it was just as Jiang Chang'eng and Zhang Yanghao had said. In the international arena, TKM was far more famous than TCM. Many of the essence and skills of TCM had been lost, but TKM still had some. Furthermore, South Korea values their national spirit and traditional culture. They treat TKM as a treasure and promote it throughout the country and even the world. TKM's application to the World Heritage Site is their most significant achievement. Just like today, when the TCM delegation arrived, the media did not even bother to look at them. They are unknown in the international community, and they are disappointed. On the other hand, Park Chung-tae and many other TKM doctors are surrounded by throngs of reporters. Surrounded by many media reporters, they threw out one question after another in reverence, as if they were believers who had seen a god. Chapter 385. If they succeed, then both of us will be sinners in history. Jiang Chang'an roared. Grandpa, don't worry. With me around, they won't succeed. Jiang Tian comforted before he accompanied the old man to the silver hall on the third floor. Master Kong, how are you going to deal with Park Jingtai? Li Fuzhen asked curiously as she walked. I'll compete with them in terms of medical skills to see who's better. Jiang Tian smiled. I'm afraid that they have already guessed it and prepared a troublesome patient in advance. Li Fuzhen locked her brows together. She was worried that Park Jingtai would have the home ground advantage, and it wouldn't be a fair duel. It's fine. Jiang Tian smiled. By the side, Zhang Yanghao was even more confident as he said, Grandmaster Zhang's medical skills are unfathomable. He has the ability to bring the dead back to life. With him making a move, won't that old punk Pu Jingtai kneel and beg for mercy? There's still an hour before the start of the exchange, and Jiang Tian and the other physicians from Huaxia were resting in a Western restaurant in the Silver Hall. Kim Jinju is calling, and she must be asking if you guys have arrived safely. I'll go and answer the call. Li Fuzhen's phone suddenly rang. All right, go ahead. Jiang Tian nodded his head, and Li Fuzhen went to the bathroom to answer the call. The Star Moon Hotel serves Korean cuisine, and everyone wasn't used to it. Hence, they ordered some simple dishes and chatted as they ate. Just when Jiang Tian was discussing with Jiang Tian and Zhang Yanghao, a surprised voice resounded, Jiang Tian. Auntie Zhang. Old classmate, it's you. Jiang Tian raised his head and saw Li Huiyan, whom he had not met for a long time. 2 years ago, Lu Yiting wanted to hire a spokesperson for her beauty store, and Li Huiyan was holding a concert in Linzhou City. Hence, Jiang Tian went over to mediate. He didn't expect Li Huiyan's agent, Guomengjia, to be so disrespectful to Jiang Tian. In fact, Jiang Tian did not take it seriously. However, his fiery sister-in-law, Zhao Qianru, quarreled with the other party and even got physical. In the end, it was Li Huiyan's boss, Bai Choufei, and Zhou Zhenghao who appeared together to calm things down. However, from then on, Jiang Tian and Li Huiyan no longer interacted. In fact, Li Huiyan had visited Zhang Wanqing in the past 2 years when she went back to Jinling to visit her relatives. She even offered to endorse Medicine King's products for free, but Zhang Wanqing politely declined. She also wanted to see Jiang Tian, but Jiang Tian had been in Singapore for the Spring Festival last year and in Jiangzhuang the year before that. He had so many things to do, so how could he have time to see her? However, Jiang Tian often heard news about her on the car radio. She had released a new song, acted in a popular TV series, and so on. It seemed that Bai Choufei was also giving him face, and had spared no effort to support him. It seemed that she had already become an A-list celebrity on Huaxia, and was known as one of the 4 young actresses. At this moment, she was wearing a white evening gown, crystal high heels, and a pair of snake-shaped earrings. Her makeup was glamorous, and her aura was powerful. She looked like an international superstar. Next to her was a male companion who was dressed luxuriously. Huiyan, what are you doing here? Zhang Wanqing had a good impression of Li Huiyan, so she asked with a smile. Li Huiyan and Jiang Tian were high school classmates, and she was extremely outstanding. A few years ago, when Li Huiyan had just debuted, she had endorsed Medicine King's products for a very low fee. In the past 2 years, she would visit Zhang Wanqing during every festival. Even when Zhang Wanqing was not in Jinling, she would call him to say hello. She was an extremely considerate girl. Auntie. I'm here to talk to a South Korean film company about a new Sino-South Korean co-production. Coincidentally, there's a grand banquet here, so I came to take a look. Are you here too? Li Huiyan pulled Zhang Wanqing's hand like an excited little sparrow as she chattered. She had always been a cold goddess in front of the public, but she was not qualified to be cold in front of Zhang Wanqing. We have some business to attend. Zhang Wanqing smiled and did not explain further. Oh, then Auntie Zhang, Jiang Tian, can I treat you to dinner after the event? Li Huiyan looked at Jiang Tian expectantly. Jiang Tian did not reply. I'm afraid we don't have much time. Why don't you attend the event with me? Zhang Wanqing asked with a smile. Before Li Huiyan could make a decision, a hint of jealousy flashed in the eyes of the man beside Li Huiyan. Jiang Tian was currently in his mortal form. After all, the Golden Gung divine body was too handsome, and it might cause a commotion. Even so, Jiang Tian still exuded a strange charm. Li Huiyan's eyes lit up when she saw Jiang Tian, and Yin Dongyuan felt even more uncomfortable. Since you are Huiyan's friends, I will bring you to attend the grand banquet later. Yin Dongyuan placed his hands in his pockets and said proudly. Everyone here is one of the wealthiest people in South Korea. It will be beneficial to your development in South Korea. Li Huiyan quickly added. Mr. Yin Dongyuan is the young master of South Korea's Letian film and television. The internationally famous director Yin Digue is his cousin. Other than that, he also invests in real estate. This convention center belongs to his family. Yin Dongyuan extended his hand gracefully. Nice to meet you. My name is Yin Dongyuan. Yin Dongyuan originally thought that when Li Huiyan revealed his family background and identity, Jiang Tian would definitely turn pale with fright. Unexpectedly, no matter if it was Jiang Tian or Zhang Wanqing, their expressions didn't change at all. South Korea's Yin family is an ancient family. Yin Dongyuan heard they are part of the royal family, and their titles were conferred by the palace master of Tanjun Daoist Palace. They control many film, music, video games, culture, video, and entertainment companies, and own half of South Korea's entertainment industry. Also, the company's films and video games are popular. The packaged male and female idol groups were even more famous in China, forming the Hallyu clan. It could be said that everyone knew about them. But Jiang Tian is a Taichu celestial lord in the past, and why would he care about a small family like Yin Dongyuan? Zhang Wanqing, Jiang Changgang, and Zhang Yanghao are all traditional Chinese medicine giants, and they have worked hard to revive traditional Chinese medicine culture. What they hate the most is the invasion of Korean culture. Why would they treat Yin Dongyuan nicely? Seeing Jiang Tian's expressionless face, Yin Dongyuan's face darkened. Just as he was about to mock Jiang Tian, Li Fuzhen walked out of the washroom. Jiang Tian stood up and said calmly. Let's go. The event is about to start. Everyone quickly got up and followed behind him. The group ignored Li Huiyan and Yin Dongyuan and walked towards the silver hall. Yin Dongyuan's handsome face darkened, and his cheeks twitched. He clenched his fists and wished he could beat up Jiang Tian. Seeing Yin Dongyuan's unhappy expression, Li Huiyan quickly added. Mr. Yin, Mr. Jiang is very influential in Huaxia, and even my company's boss respects him. I think he must have something urgent to attend to. Humph. A country bumpkin from Huaxia dares to act all high and mighty in South Korea. Yin Dongyuan is still angry. He originally wanted to use his family's background to suppress Jiang Tian, but who would have thought that Jiang Tian would not even look at him? This kind of disrespect was something that Yin Dongyuan, who had always been arrogant, could not accept. Huiyan, accompany me to the Tanjun ceremony. This time, many tycoons and high-ranking officials will be attending. More importantly, some celebrities will be invited, and it will be helpful for your career. Yin Dongyuan said gracefully, but his eyes flashed with greed when he saw Li Huiyan's voluptuous breasts and curvy buttocks. Li Huiyan was a typical Oriental beauty. Moreover, she was in the golden age of a woman. Every frown and smile of hers was full of charm. Yin Dongyuan had played with many A-list stars in girl groups over the years, but he felt they are still lacking compared to Li Huiyan. A ticket to enter South Korea's high society and film industry should be enough to attract her. Regarding this, Yin Dongyuan was confident of victory. Indeed, Li Huiyan's eyes brighten up. She is very popular in Huaxia, but she is not that popular in South Korea. Yin Dongyuan's family is influential in the film industry, and they are more influential than any film company in Huaxia. If she could really become the female lead of the Sino-Korean action blockbuster, it would be equivalent to being able to walk out of the country and even break out of Asia to go international. But Li Huiyan hesitated as she looked at Jiang Tian's back. Although she only met Jiang Tian once 2 years ago, the scene of Bai Choufei begging for mercy was deeply engraved in her mind. Furthermore, the king of medicine, Jiang Tian's family is the most powerful family in Jinling. But on second thought, no matter how powerful the Jiang family is, it has nothing to do with the film industry. When she saw Jiang Tian's group entering the Silver Hall, she sighed and said, "Let's go." When Jiang Tian's group entered the Silver Hall, everyone's attention was drawn to them. Many important events, including the G20 summit, have been held here before. The hall is more than 300 square meters, and there are more than 50 medical leaders, experts, and medical officials from the Guo family from around the world. There are more than 500 people in total, and there are also many seats for the media. The Chinese medicine delegation is here. Are they here to cause trouble? What's the use? The TKM application is basically set in stone. The TCM of Huaxia is here to make their presence known. They're just asking to be humiliated. I wonder how sad and disappointed they will be when they see TKM in this state. Serves them right. It's only right that they don't respect the things passed down by their ancestors. The leading figures and experts in the medical field from all over the world looked at Jiang Tian's group with disdain and started discussing among themselves. The experts of Huaxia's TCM field are here. I've been paying attention to the development of TCM in Huaxia. This must be Imperial Physician Zhang, and this is Mr. Jiang. I've heard of your names for a long time. At this moment, Pu Zhengtai, who was sitting in the front row, heard the voices and greeted them with a smile. He spoke fluent Chinese and shook hands with them. Behind him were Pu Yunjing, Zheng Chuhe, Choi Juanxi, and many other young talents from South Korea. Yes, Mr. Pu. Nice to meet you. Although Jiang Changgang and the rest were displeased, they still maintained their poise. At this moment, Pu Yunjing took a step forward and walked to Pu Zhengtai's side. She said with disdain, "Grandpa, according to the rules of the conference, there are no seats prepared for the Chinese physicians because they were not invited. Huaxia's TCM is just a medical school that can't be brought to the table. It's third-rate and has no right to step onto the international stage." Chapter 386. How can you be so rude to guests from afar? Pu Zhengtai pretended to be angry. As it turned out, Huaxia's TCM was not invited to the International Medical Conference for the celebration of TKM's successful application. However, Huaxia's TCM Association decided to take the initiative and sent a letter requesting to participate in the conference. Pu Yunjing was purposely trying to intimidate Jiang Tian and the rest. She spoke in Mandarin, and everyone could hear her clearly despite her lack of fluency. A declining medical school like TCM is going to be finished soon. Why waste this precious opportunity? Why don't you give it to other schools of medicine? Pu Yunjing looked at Jiang Tian and the others with a cold expression, as if she was looking down on weak ants. What nonsense are you spouting? Zhang Yanghao was so angry that he almost fainted. Ha, Imperial Physician Zhang, I have my reasons. Pu Yunjing was not afraid at all. She stood there elegantly like a princess and smiled. According to the statistics of the International Health Organization, there were 800,000 practitioners of TCM in China during the Republic of China. In 1949, there were 500,000 practitioners. Now, there are only 180,000 practitioners. According to the research of the International Health Organization, most of the practitioners of TCM in China are just hanging sheep's head to sell dog meat. Only 10% of TCM practitioners prescribe decoctions. We believe that at this rate, TCM in Huaxia will be extinct in 10 years. Everyone's face froze when they heard that. They were furious, but they could not refute it. To a certain extent, what Pu Yunjing said was the truth. The cruel truth. In Huaxia, Western medicine was popular. Most patients were superstitious about Western medicine, and only 1 in 100 was willing to see a TCM practitioner. This time, if TKM succeeds in its application, it will definitely attract the attention of the world. Pu Yunjing smiled proudly. 10 years later, TKM will become the mainstream of medicine in the world. You TCM practitioners should quickly return to your own land and wait for death. Ha! Miss Pu is really amazing. Not only are her medical skills excellent, but she also has business skills. These TCM practitioners can't say anything against her. Miss Pu has hit the nail on the head. The decline of TCM is an indisputable fact. The group of TKM representatives laughed and gave Pu Yunjing a thumbs up. Zheng Chuha's eyes lit up. He only felt that Pu Yunjing's words were so cool, which made Chinese medicine speechless and proud. If I were you, I wouldn't have the face to come. Cui Juanxi, who was wearing a gorgeous suit and a pair of calfskin shoes inlaid with sparkling diamonds, walked over and pointed at Jiang Changgang and the others with a disdainful look. Damn transvestite, what's the meaning of this? A Chinese doctor cursed. Over the years, our TKM has been popularized throughout the country. Moreover, we've even gone overseas and spread all over the world. Cui Juanxi pouted her red lips and pointed at the crowd. What about you guys? Losing ground after ground, declining day by day. The things passed down by our ancestors have all been destroyed by you. Yeah, it's an international medical conference. Even Native American doctors have a seat. On the other hand, Zheng Chuha's face was also filled with arrogance as he mocked, your TCM is just a superstition that disregards human life. They're just a bunch of ignorant and incompetent swindlers. We call on the World Health Organization to ban all traditional Chinese medicine and traditional Chinese medicine shops internationally. What did you say? Who do you think you are to ban us just because you say so? Many Chinese medicine doctors were stunned. They did not expect the South Korean side to be so aggressive. Not qualified to attend this conference? Go back to Huaxia and wait for your death. Ban TCM? Just when everyone was at a loss for words, a cold voice resounded throughout the hall, but it was in standard Korean. TCM is the origin of Asian medical skills. Regardless of East Asia's traditional Chinese medicine, TKM, or Southern medicine. All of them are just derivatives of TCM. No matter how popular your TKM is and how skillful your techniques are, you are still the disciples of TCM. For example, your TKM is the adopted son of the old mother of TCM. Now, the son had made a fortune, but the old mother is old and weak. You all are not going to acknowledge her and even want to take over her ancestral home and brand. What is this called? This is called heartless and unscrupulous. Good. Well said. All the Chinese medicine doctors in Huaxia looked at Jiang Tian and applauded. Who are you? Pu Jingtai glared fiercely at Jiang Tian, and the veins on his forehead bulged. He was like a ferocious wolf that was about to devour its prey. Jiang Tian's words touched his sore spot, pinching his weak spot. It was to the extent that he, who was astonishingly well-mannered, had his emotions greatly erupt. Who am I? Jiang Tian lazily walked over, smiled indifferently, and said arrogantly, you don't have the right to know my name. Then, handsome, am I qualified to know your name? Choi Junhee's eyes lit up when he saw Jiang Tian. How can there be such a handsome man in the world? He is more handsome than those South Korean celebrities. He wriggled his way towards Jiang Tian, looking at Jiang Tian with an intoxicated expression. How about coming to my winery for a drink tonight? I am very interested in you. Come back here. Pak Yunjing pulled Choi Junhee back and whispered something into Pak Youngtae's ears. So, it's you. Pak Youngtae sneered. You are just Jiang Changgen's grandson and a junior in the medical field. You are not qualified to talk to me. Ha! I'm not qualified. My medical skills are unfathomable, and I can even be called the medical deity or medical saint. I can even bring the dead back to life. How can you be compared to me? Jiang Tian looked at Pak Youngtae with disdain, and Pak Youngtae was so angry that he almost jumped up. This brat is too arrogant. He is too arrogant. If he can bring the dead back to life, he might even win the Nobel Prize in medicine. Nonsense. This is against the common sense of medicine. There was a simultaneous translation system in this kind of meeting. When the medical giants heard what Pak Youngtae said, they were stunned and could not believe their ears. Suppressing his rage, Pak Youngtae maintained his poise as a leading figure in the medical industry and smiled. Mr. Jiang, I don't agree with your claim that TKM came from China. I have already said that all of you are heartless and have forgotten your ancestors. Of course, you don't agree with me. Jiang Tian's words nearly drove Pak Youngtae mad. Zheng Chuha's face turned furious as he reprimanded, Mr. Jiang, please maintain your gentlemanly demeanor in an upper-class society. If you continue to be so rude, I'll have you arrested for the crime of personal insult. I am the young master of Hyundai Group, Zheng Chuha. I am not joking, and you must believe that I have the ability to do so. Zheng Chuha proudly introduced himself, hoping to intimidate Jiang Tian. Ha! You are just the son of a car repair factory's director. You have not even washed the petrol off your face, and you dare to pretend to be a gentleman? What a joke! Jiang Tian smiled disdainfully and said, your Chinese is not bad. Let me teach you a sentence and let you pass level 6 in Chinese. My words are rough but not rough, and you guys are rough. You speak of gentlemanly manners and social etiquette, but in reality, you guys are despicable and shameless. You. How can you speak so arrogantly in this kind of high-class meeting? You are just trying to please the crowd with your nonsense. Zheng Chuha was trembling with anger because of Jiang Tian. At this moment, Zheng Chuha wanted to chop Jiang Tian into pieces. But this was a foreign occasion, and he had to be mindful of social etiquette. You are the arrogant one. You are not qualified to talk to me. Even your grandfather, the founder of Hyundai Group, is not qualified to talk to me. Jiang Tian pointed at Zheng Chuha's nose and scolded. And now, my argument with Park Jingtai has nothing to do with him. I don't despise him, but there is no need for me to respect him either. In your eyes, I am trying to please the crowd, but in my eyes, I am talking about who is the source of TKM and TCM. This is not a small issue between individuals. Jiang Tian sneered. Children should not interrupt when adults are talking. Obediently scram to the side, or else I'll slap you with my big mouth. I will teach you a lesson on behalf of your grandfather. For a moment, everyone was dumbfounded. This was Zheng Chuha they were talking about. He was born in a top family, and he was expected to control Hyundai Group in the future. He was one of the top 4 scions in South Korea, and he was on par with Star Moon Group's Lee Jae-rong. But now, he was being scolded by this Hua Xia kid. Hua Xia had always been particular about peace and harmony, so they were always humble and courteous when dealing with people. But this person was arrogant. Arrogant. Supercilious. Everyone's impression of Hua Xia was refreshed. It turned out that Hua Xia people were also like that. You. Zheng Chuha was infuriated to the point his teeth creaked while his face turned red, white, and green. Chuha, you don't have to say anything. This is an academic argument between us. Park Jingtai patted Zheng Chuha's shoulder to calm him down. He narrowed his eyes and looked at Jiang Tian carefully for the first time. It was rare for him to see a young man with such sharp words and powerful aura. Zheng Chuha was no match for him at all. He placed his hands behind his back and said calmly, I have my reasons for not agreeing that TKM originated from Huaxia. The Yellow Emperor's Internal Classic, Su Wen Chapter, Volume 4 mentioned that those who use stones came from the East. This means that stones and acupuncture came from Korea to Huaxia. There are many similar examples, and it shows that TKM is the source of TCM. Everyone was shocked when they heard that. The Yellow Emperor's Internal Classic was the most important medical book in TCM. It was hard to refute him when he used it to prove his point. You only know one part of it. Jiang Tian said calmly, there are 3 theories about when the Yellow Emperor's Internal Classic was written. The first is that Huaxia was before the Qin and Warring States period. The second is that it was written between the Qin and Han dynasties, and the third is that it was written during the Western Han dynasties. But do you know how South Korea came to be? When did you establish your country? Chapter 387. Jiang Tian calmly said, Korea was the first country in the history of the Korean peninsula. 3,000 years ago, King Zhou was tyrannical during the end of the Shang dynasty. The Zhou dynasty took the opportunity to wipe out the Shang dynasty. There was a noble in the Shang dynasty called Ji. He was unwilling to be a subject of Western Zhou and led 5,000 Shang dynasty people to Korea. Stone cutting and acupuncture were invented by Huaxia, and Ji also knew how to do it. At that time, the Korean peninsula was a barbarian land, and there were wild beasts everywhere. There was a shortage of resources and medicine, and that was the reason why stone cutting and acupuncture were so popular. Ji developed it in the Korean peninsula and spread it to Huaxia. But the origin must be from Huaxia. That is because Ji is from Huaxia. Wow! Jiang Changgang, Zhang Yanghao, and the rest applauded and looked at Jiang Tian in a new light. Zhang Wanqing was also proud. She did not expect Jiang Tian to be so knowledgeable. He even knows about such obscure knowledge. She did not know that Jiang Tian had read many ancient books to find out about the secrets of the ruins of immortals. His knowledge of history was no less than any history professor. These are all unofficial histories. You can't treat them as real. Pak Zhengtai panicked and tried to refute. Unofficial histories? According to historical records, South Korea is not even a vassal state of Huaxia. You are only a part of Huaxia's territory. Jiang Tian's tongue was as sharp as a sword, bombarding him once again. What did you say? Pak Zhengtai was so angry that his hands were shaking. Bullshit. All the Koreans were furious. Jiang Tian said that South Korea belongs to Huaxia. This is an insult to them. Jiang Tian said with disdain, at the end of the Warring States period, Yi Yi's feat of destroying Qi brought the Yan kingdom to its peak. King Zhao of Yan took advantage of the situation and ordered Wei Man to lead his army into the peninsula. In just a few years, the entire peninsula was under Yan kingdom's control. After that, Qin dynasty conquered Yan kingdom. In truth, until the era of Han Hui, Han Wen, and Han Jing, it was under the jurisdiction of Liaodong Prefecture. Although Wei Man and his descendants have been officials for generations, in the end, they are just subordinates of the Liaodong governor. Therefore, I welcome you to abandon the darkness for the light at any time and jump into the warm embrace of the motherland. Shen Mange looked at Jiang Tian with a mesmerized expression and felt pity for the TKM doctors present. The last part was an insult and a joke. But the words in front were all unpopular historical knowledge. How could he remember it so clearly? If the children of Huaxia remember history like this, how can the cultural treasures of Huaxia not be passed down? An old pedant raised his thumb in praise. Yes, yes, yes. We can't lose our ancestors' things. We can't forget our ancestors' history. Mo Zhengrong clapped his hands in agreement. Look, the TKM doctors are so angry that their faces have turned green. I reckon that their high blood pressure is about to act up. It was so satisfying. It's so satisfying. Fuck, Divine Dr. Zhang's words are too smooth. How could he be so talented? Many of the TKM doctors felt elated. It was as if they had eaten iced watermelon on a hot day. It felt good from head to toe. He's so handsome. He's so domineering. I feel like I've been conquered. Choi Jun-hee looked at Jiang Tian with a mesmerized expression as he raised his thumb and middle finger. He couldn't wait to pounce into Jiang Tian's embrace. Young Master Choi, whose side are you on? Someone beside him reminded him. It's simply too embarrassing to bring such a demon here. She's going to be smitten again. Why, you're going too far. Pu Youngtae was so angry that he felt dizzy. Many of the TKM doctors were flushed with anger. They couldn't wait to rush up and fight with Jiang Tian. What did you say? Pu Yunzhang's body trembled. With a cold expression, she gritted her teeth and shouted, Mr. Jiang, you're insulting us. You're already suspected of insulting the country. Do you know that? I'm not. I'm speaking the truth. Boom. Many of the TKM doctors burst into laughter and cheered. The applause was thunderous. Some were laughing so hard that they slapped their thighs. Some were crying, and some were jumping for joy. Jiang Tian is too mean. Yi Ziwei pursed her lips and looked at Jiang Tian. She was speechless. Grandmaster Zhang's eloquence is too smooth. He's too talented. He's practically on par with Dian society. What he said was like a crosstalk. Some of the female staff members of the visiting group looked at Jiang Tian with admiration and infatuation. Yeah. Since I started interacting with him yesterday, I felt that he was quite cold and unwilling to speak. I thought that he wasn't eloquent. Who knew that he would use good steel for the blade? Another girl was laughing so hard that she was almost out of breath. Regardless of whether the protest was successful or not, it's worth coming here to listen to Divine Dr. Zhang's crosstalk. Everyone applauded. This brat is just bullshitting. Jiang Chang'ing shook his head with a smile, but his eyes were filled with joy and admiration. Old master, this is called, a man of great importance should not be bothered by trifles. Who cares if it's true or not? Let's beat down their arrogance first. Zhang Yanghao said. That makes sense. Jiang Chang'ing nodded. The South Korean TCM was too infuriating, and it wasn't too much for Jiang Tian to return an eye for an eye. Moreover, TKM had clearly wanted to suppress Chinese medicine from the start. But now, with just a few words from Jiang Tian, they had completely turned the tables. Mo Zhengrong clapped and laughed. You're just a Korean dog who only knows some trash medical skills. How dare you challenge Hua Xia's TKM? What a joke. I can defeat all of your TKM doctors alone. Before Mo Zhengrong could take out his phone, Jiang Tian's voice resounded in the hall. Pu Zhengtai, if you can defeat me, TKM doctors will acknowledge you as their teacher, and all the shares of my Jiang family's Medicine King group will be yours. But if you lose, your Daewoo Pharmaceutical Company will belong to my Jiang family. TKM will be removed from the list, and TKM will be known as the Korean School of TKM. Do you dare to accept my challenge? As soon as he said that, the entire hall fell silent. Everyone present stared at Jiang Tian, dumbfounded. Their faces were filled with shock and disbelief. You're tuning into the Blissful Bookshelf YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.